Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. Glad to be back with you after a Friday absence. Had some awesome fights in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Not the most glamorous location that the PFL, plans on traveling to this year, but sneaky cool little town. If you ever have an opportunity, not bad. Not bad at all. We got, oh man, excuse me.
We'll see what major attractions are in Sioux Falls.
The falls, the waterfall themselves.
Okay.
There's a wonderful museum called the Courthouse Museum. Free entry. It's the old downtown courthouse there.
Is it like Native American history?
Mostly,
of that?
Yeah. It's like kind of the colonial settler / Native American history. And, you know, a lot of that Lakota stuff played out in the Dakotas. So, really cool stuff.
Huh. How far away is, because Mount Rushmore is in South Dakota, right?
Yeah.
How far away are we from Mount Rushmore?
Well, it's about 5.5 hours.
Oh, okay. So not that close.
Mount Rushmore is on the other side of the state.
Gotcha. Well, cool.
So if you're looking to go to the Black Hills, you're probably not going to end up in Sioux Falls. But nice little town. Anyway, great fights, amazing fights. And what a weekend of NHL playoff action, NBA playoff action. And we'll talk about all of it today on the show. Tom Callahan joins us in half an hour. Sarah Todd joins us in the noon hour. Shahan Jayaraja, as there are lots of offseason storylines right now. We have not picked his brain yet about the Big 12's private equity deal, how many schools he thinks are going to opt into that. We got some numbers from the Big 10 conference on some of their revenue distributions, and it will highlight just how important more access to more money is for schools in the Big 12, because the Big 10 is printing its own cash right now. Exit interviews took place for your Utah Mammoth after, of course, a disappointing Friday night where a lot of us hoped that maybe they'd be able to steal one back on home ice and extend the series to Game 7. Unfortunately, the tires just kind of blew off, and the Golden Knights were on a mission. Stayed dialed in, did what they needed to do, and this is where playoffs are really interesting to me, because obviously we come from a spot in college sports and pro sports where it's kind of a championship or bust mentality, and you didn't have that all season long with the Mammoth. For obvious reason. We've been carefully filled in on all of the necessary steps in a new hockey market that Bill Armstrong and the Smith Entertainment Group and Coach Bear and everyone else feels like this team has to go through. And we watched, I think, probably the most important step so far on this journey. This group, the core that is mostly together, and most of them are going to be back, and most of them are going to stay together. You've got questions about Tanev and Yamamoto and Kerfoot and some of these guys, but the nucleus of this team is locked in to contracts for a while. You got Mackenzie Weegar, you got an extension with him. And look, it was far from a perfect year, but we didn't expect perfection. We didn't even expect excellence. What we expected was, are you going to compete for a playoff spot? And they did. They earned a playoff spot, and they made us believe they could win and should win a playoff series. And that, we got some sound from the exit interviews. That's a sentiment that was echoed across the team with this Utah Mammoth squad. Like, yeah, it was important to reach this milestone. And now, you know, our goal next year is going to be to chase not just a playoff spot, but it's like playing a video game. Achievement unlocked, and now what's the next one? Now it's win a series, chase a championship. we're all in on 2026, 2027. Probably most realistically, we're talking about this team being Stanley Cup contenders when we're into 27, 28, 28, 29, maybe. But it was a glorious year. In the second season of this franchise's existence as a Utah Hockey Club / Utah Mammoth team, that unfortunately came to an end 5-1 on Friday night with the Golden Knights. 877-353-0700 if you want to weigh in on the text line. I asked the simple question on the old tweet machine about who your MVP for this Mammoth team was this year. The low-hanging fruit, obviously, is going to be statistically based. You're going to talk about guys like Dylan Guenther. You're going to talk about the captain himself. Clayton Keller had an up-and-down year. Clayton Keller had an incredibly complicated year off ice because of the unexpected passing of his father. And when you're asked to deal with that and still go to work, I mean, everyone out there listening has probably had some level of life interruption and has had to compartmentalize and try to figure it out. Hopefully most of us haven't had one that drastic, that devastating, that unexpected, and then had to go out and perform your job in a very visible manner. Like 99% of us, our jobs are not front-facing in public. And it's already a Herculean effort. It's already a difficult task to set aside the distraction, to set aside whatever it is, a death in the family, relationship problems, financial strain, an illness, to set those things aside and push forward in your accounting job is admirable. To do it as a lawyer is admirable. To do it as a police officer is incredibly important and admirable. To do it as a professional athlete where everybody knows the story. Everybody knows. People report on these things. And then to also say, oh, let's see how it affects him. And to watch you maybe even more closely and with more curiosity. And I think in the case of this fan base, with a caring curiosity, but some intensity to it at the very least. And Clayton Keller pushed through. He played right away. He didn't hit a pause button and say, guys, I got to go right now. He played the next day.
That was the game in Dallas, right?
I think that's right. And it was like, he felt like that's what was best for him, what his dad would have wanted him to do. And we got the stories about, what an incredible sports parent his dad was and the sacrifices that the family made in order to make sure that Clayton chased his dream. That is a complicated thing to process in the best circumstances. To do it while your team is counting on you and to do it, that gives him like a special consideration for team MVP, even if his numbers weren't what you thought his numbers should be this year. To pull yourself up by the bootstraps when you have every excuse and not a one person in the fan base, in the organization would give you a little side eye like, are you sure you need to do this right now? Everyone would have been like, hey, man, take your time. And he stayed with the team, and he played with the team, and he helped lead the team.
Yeah, and work, to be honest with you, OC, work, and this is it's kind of absurd to call professional sports work, but this is their work, right? Can be a distraction from that kind of stuff. And so I think that, hopefully in the long run, it's not something that he looks back on as like, man, I feel like maybe I would have been better if I took some more time before I went back to work, before I went back to play. But in the short term, it can help you in those situations. So I hope that's how it was for Clayton Keller. He a lot of athletes agree with that sentiment that in their experience it helps them with this. Hopefully that was the case for Keller. But yeah, the level of difficulty for him to put up the numbers that he put up, even if they weren't as good as last season, even if they were lower than expectations going in the year, the level of difficulty and still have a really good season like he did, statistically and otherwise, I mean, that's a great case for team MVP.
And he's the captain, right? So you're already going to put him kind of forward for that in the first place. The reason I think it's a compelling question is because Nick Schmaltz was so massively important in big-time games against elite Western Conference competition. I think Schmaltz's play, 74 points this year, 33 goals, and 41 assists. So he was the second leading goal scorer on the team behind only Dylan Gunther, and he was second in goals, and he was, third in assists? Yeah, I'm reading that right. Third in assists on the team. Keller led the team in assists with 62. He was
points leader, right?
What's that?
Was he the points leader
Keller?
again? Keller?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
88 points this year. 14 points better than anyone else. Schmaltz had 74. Cooley, I think, unfortunately, the missed time for the injury probably takes him out of some of that consideration. But I'm not asking for a regular season MVP. I'm talking about a season MVP here. A guy that stepped up huge in the playoffs. Logan Krause, I thought, also was pretty impressive in the playoffs after that game one that was just disgusting for his line. I thought that he really stepped up.
He had a lot of goals. He's not a guy you rely on to put the puck in the back of the net, and he had quite a few goals for the team. The Sour Krause.
Krause. Bringing down the Krause. Sergachev was kind of his same old steady presence. Veggie led the NHL in goalie wins, right? Part of that was they did not Vanacek wasn't good. So they had to put Veggie in probably more than they wanted to, and he rose to the occasion on that and played pretty darn well. He probably would love a few of those playoff goals, playoff chances thrown his way back. But 877-353-0700. Who's your team MVP for this Utah Mammoth squad in their second season of existence and, of course, their first time making it to the playoffs? I asked James to grab some sound from the exit interviews. I think there's some compelling stuff said by these players, and we're going to have some more of that for you on the show later today because, it's hockey guys are a little different. As we've come to know over the last couple of years, hockey guys process things a little bit different. They talk about things a little bit different. And so you got some nice little sound bites. You got some good stuff. And the overwhelming sentiment in the locker room, in the dressing room, is that there's disappointment for the short term, for the fact that you lost. Because, of course, they're all consummate competitors. And optimism for the future. It's a really it's a weird place to be, honestly. I think if you're a professional athlete, because you don't ever want to give it an excuse. You don't ever want to say the quiet thing out loud. Like, we all kind of knew we weren't ready to make a cup run this year. But maybe next year, and maybe the next year after that, and maybe the next year after that, and we should be a staple in this conference moving forward. You don't want to say to the media, you don't want to say, probably even to your teammates, like, this wasn't our year, guys. It's next year that's supposed to be our year.
Yeah, we weren't supposed to win in the playoffs anyway, kind of thing.
You don't want to do that.
Even think that.
You don't want, come on, guys, this isn't our year, and they're an experienced playoff team, and they're getting a little bit older, so they're going to be out of our way in the next couple of years. A lot of times, juxtapose it against the Boston Celtics end of their season, juxtapose it against all the exit interviews that you can find for NBA teams that are crashing down at the end of the year. And it doesn't feel like, maybe it's less acceptable in the NBA. Maybe the guys are more focused on the here and now. But you don't hear it often at the end of a football season. Hey, next year is going to be a great year, though. And I don't know how many times also you hear from players that have contract uncertainty, the definitive statement, I want to be here, I love this city, I love this fan base, I love this organization. if you're a professional sports agent, I don't even know if that's the message you want your player sending, because it separates you from a little bit of leverage sometimes. Not in every case, but everyone whose contract and future is even marginally up in the air that was asked about it in the player exit interviews was just like, yeah, I want to be here. I hope I get to run this back with these guys. I hope we get to do this again. And the reality is, you might not. The reality is, like, something's got to give. You got this pipeline of young guys that are coming up. I don't know when Baudouin's going to be ready. We don't know when Iginla's going to be ready. Simashev and Boot both kind of flirted with the big league roster this season.
They could be full-time players next season.
They could, I mean, and they bring, I think, some much-needed size to the lineup. They're both, as big as Krause effectively, and they're still young and probably growing into a little bit more muscle mass. So, I mean, this is the tough thing for any GM in any sport, but for Bill Armstrong, you've got this sort of family vibe, this thing that, the fan base is really glommed onto a group, a particular group. And I don't think it only fits with the star players. Like, you go into the arena and obviously the Keller jersey is the number one seller. But you'll see you'll see the Schmidt jerseys, you see the Schmaltz jerseys, you see plenty of Gunther jerseys. He's a star though. Like, the role players are loved and appreciated by the fan base and by the rest of the guys in the locker room. And some of those guys are not going to be back next year, potentially. That's the pain of a season coming to an end. And Gordy has talked about this in the basketball sense many times. We talked about this just a few weeks ago with the Utah Jazz. And he points it out every year at locker room cleanout. He says, you may never be in this dressing room, in this locker room with these guys ever again. And the reality is, you're almost certain not to be. The team won't be the exact same. There's somebody who's not going to be part of this, who might be your best friend on the team, who might be your favorite player on the team as you're out there listening. And they're part of, whoever that was, part of the first run at the playoffs, the first, holy cow, that thing in the Delta Center when Friday night, a couple of Friday nights ago, when you rally and you win it, and it's the loudest building that some of these guys have ever been in, that stays with you. And you want it to be there again next year, but it might not be. But every one of those guys, James, and you're going to cut the sound up, and we'll have it on ESPN700sports.com. We'll play some of it on the show today. Every one of those guys was like, yeah, I want to be here. That says something about what Ryan and Ashley Smith have built, what Bill Armstrong and Coach Bear have built, what Clayton Keller and Logan Krause and the other leadership on this team have built.
Yeah, I was just thinking, you were thinking about star player or fan favorites who leave teams. Like, think about the JJ Peterka trade.
Yeah.
Doan was, didn't you have the donors? Was that what they called it? His fan section in the Delta Center. He was part of that trade, a big fan favorite that, management and fans hoped it would be a net positive, bringing in a great goal scorer like J.J. Peterka. He was a little bit disappointing this year, particularly in the playoff series, but still young. But you gave up a really big fan favorite to get that kind of player who, it's hard to think about, but who of those guys might we see on other teams next season from this year's team? As beloved as Doan was, he was not part of the first playoff team. So whoever it might be that's going to be different this year, that guy might hurt your heart a little bit more than the guys you lost last offseason from the inaugural team or from the debut team. So that's always a tough thing, especially when it's a new franchise like this, OC. And you're like, I've identified that role player that I really love, and then they're gone the next season. that can be really tough. But we're all sports fans here. We know that's the way things go. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of team they bring in next season, and who returns and who's gone.
If you're out there listening right now, James, for you, Bill Armstrong, I know you're a big fan of the show, and we'll get him on as soon as we can. I would love to know also, as you're making decisions about, where you spend your slightly shrinking pool of asset money and of picks and things like that, because now you have not just regular season numbers on these guys, but over a 6-game series, you have some sense, and it's not a full concrete position, but you have some sense of what these guys are as playoff skaters. What kind of game do you have in the Stanley Cup playoffs? We see that there's an adjustment in style. We see that the pace of the game changes just a little bit. We've dipped our toes into these waters now, and we've talked about it in football for years. We've talked about it in basketball many, many times, and we're getting more acquainted with it in the NHL. We've all had this awareness, just sort of a general, royal, vague awareness that playoff hockey is awesome and good and wonderful and full of tradition, and they got the beards and the referees swallow the whistles for the most part and all that stuff. We've known as sports fans about that. Now we've seen it. We've paid attention to it. We drilled down on the minutia a little bit. And I got to say, I think that your playoff performance is something that this team is going to look at and have to look at significantly moving forward. Lawson Krause was your points leader in the playoffs. Dylan Gunther, your season goals leader, as one might expect. He's your goals leader in the playoffs. Mikhail Sergachev kind of maintained his facilitator status in the playoffs. He was the leading assist man in the playoffs. Logan Cooley actually had more penalty minutes than anyone else in the playoffs. That's an ignominious honor. That's something that you don't want to see probably, but maybe indicative or a statement about what kind of guy he is when it's all on the line. Plus minus leader was Schmaltz, and there was some question it was Schmidt. There was some question through a couple of games whether Schmaltz and Keller and some of those guys who were stepping the game up the right way in the playoffs, whether they had the playoff style of hockey in them. And those guys aren't going anywhere on your roster. But if there's anyone else a little bit further down that you're asking that type of question to, or asking that type of question about, maybe that's where this roster changes up a little bit. It's odd. I don't want to see anyone go. I said this after last season. This is our group now. These are the guys that we like. These are the guys who introduced us to this. And now this particular team, this group, these are the ones who introduced us to playoff hockey and to expectation, and to finally, after long last, a professional team that plays at the Delta Center downtown that is actually trying to win and we can really care about. And we can feel the sting of defeat. We were finishing up our weigh-in broadcast, James, and then we were going to this dinner, and I'm being the obnoxious bad guest, the member of the group that's looking down at his phone, watching the game, and checking on the score and getting out of the Uber and just being like, hold on, we got a bad connection here. I got to switch over to the Wi-Fi. I was being that guy. And it was probably annoying as hell for everyone I was with because I kept, they're talking to me. They're trying to have real conversations. And I'm like, what is he doing? I'm fist pumping in a restaurant when Kyler Yamamoto gets the only goal of the game. It's good to feel those things in professional sports in the state. Real Salt Lake has brought that back this year. The Utah Mammoth brought it back in the Delta Center this year. The University of Utah football team, you felt the sting of expectation after there was some point last year. Well, I guess 2 years ago. Now, there's some point 2 seasons ago now where you're just like, wow, this is just bad. Snake bit, not that good, unlucky, whatever you thought it was, where you just kind of like numbed yourself. You weren't able to with this Utah Mammoth team, and that's the good stuff, man. That's the real stuff of sports fandom. You're like, yes, we can win this series. I'm going to start thinking about who I'm inviting to the second round playoff games. And then when it doesn't happen, you're just like, oh, damn it. Isn't it great to have that back? As painful as it is, isn't it great to have it back with a team downtown? I say yes. James, may the 4th be with you.
Or happy Cinco de Cuatro, whichever you celebrate. Hopefully not Cinco de Cuatro.
I'm more of a may the 4th be with you kind of guy.
The Cinco de Cuatro is a lot more obscure, but if you're an Arrested Development fan, you know what I'm saying.
I still haven't watched it.
It's very good.
I've never heard the Cinco de Cuatro reference. I only know about the banana stand reference.
Yeah, that's the most famous one, but that banana stand's from the first season, and as you know, with TV shows, ones that get like a cult following, the stuff from the first season, if it's really good, typically is the most well-lasting. Cinco de Cuatro is a made-up holiday that the Bluths do to counteract Cinco de Mayo in Orange County.
All right, so we have Keller sound, Schmaltz sound, Kraus sound, Gunther sound, Sergachev sound, Veggie sound, and Michael Carcone sound. Spoiler, we're not going to get to it all today, and we'll do our best to sprinkle some of it in. I'll give you what I can, but we're going to take a break right now on a show that is brought to you today and every day by our good friends down there at Big Willie's, Utah's #1 sports bar, #1 pool hall. Has a lunch special today. I'll talk about it more in the hot lunch, but patty melt today. I love me a good old patty melt. And the tater kegs are back. Jalapeno bacon tater kegs. Not tater tots, tater kegs. It's like James, would you say it's a 3 times or 4 times the size of a normal tater tot?
It's a giant, it's definitely a giant tater tot, and much more than just potatoes in there, like you just mentioned. So they have the potatoes and they stuff it with all the other stuffings to make it huge. It's
yummy.
So good.
1717 South Main. Tell them OC sent you. They don't have any more playoff games to host with the Utah Mammoth, but it is a perfect spot to go watch the rest of the NHL playoffs, the rest of the NBA playoffs. Maybe you got down there for the Kentucky Derby this last weekend. Any sporting event that you want to catch in a nice, friendly, social environment with great food, great drinks, great service, go to Big Willie's and tell them OC sent you. Tom Callahan next. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. If you're feeling the sting of a Utah Mammoth season coming to an end, we're with you. All right? Hopefully you got a chance to see playoff hockey at the Delta Center in one of the 3 games played there. If not, there's going to be plenty more Stanley Cup playoff hockey being played in the next few seasons in that building. And by the way, the remodel, the construction has already begun as it gets another facelift. Joining us now on the Sean O'Connell Show, Tom Callahan, host of Locked On Mammoth at Callahan on Air, friend of the program, one of our hockey insiders. Tom, welcome back. How are you?
You know what? Not doing too bad. I appreciate the tune, the mournful dirge of Don McLean coming in, but I'm trying to go glass half full here as I look back at this season and what it meant for the Mammoth.
Well, let's do that. Let's approach from this glass half full, because if I rewind all the way to the beginning of the season when we're having our exploratory talks, hey, what should we expect? What do you think is going to happen here? This is a team that could make the playoffs. The optimistic ones of us said this is a team that will make the playoffs. And they at least did that. We saw some great stuff from them in the playoffs. We saw some things that need to be cleaned up and fixed so they can advance beyond the first round next time. But it feels like they're at least on pace. If we're trying to keep this glass half full, is this what the Mammoth franchise needed from their second season in order to stay on track?
Yeah, it really is. And at the beginning of the year on our show, we said playoffs are bust. And, even on here, every time we come on, hey, playoffs are bust. That was how it felt. If you're going to, quote unquote, take the next step, the playoffs are the next step. They made the playoffs. They made a pretty good showing against Vegas. I still think they could have won that series. And we could, talk about that till we're blue in the face. But they did get the next step. They got the playoff experience. There were some nice revelations, some surprises along the road this year in the regular season, some players who really stepped up. I think some other, deficits in the lineup made themselves a little more evident. And overall, we have a clearer picture as to what it is going to take, to your original point, to advance this team even further in seasons to come.
So as that picture comes into greater clarity, what does it look like? Where are the holes that need to be filled still on this team, and how heavy a lift is it, or is it just some tweaking?
Well, it's one of those things where the biggest question I've got heading into the offseason and where there is the most potential for change with one move is behind the bench. Andre Tourne's contract, coming into this year was on its final year. And I'm really curious to see what the direction is going to be with all of it, quite frankly. I mean, the front office has to make a decision here on the team, the identity, the focus of this team, because right now they can go one of two ways. They have speed elements and they can play fast. And they can really, kill you with that. And they did to Vegas a couple of times in that playoff series. But they also can play big and physical, and they've kind of been drafting in that mold. So, or maybe somehow you can be a hybrid of that. But I think that's one of the things that has to change is the way they approach their games and their game plan. No matter what the result is of who's back there. The other thing, I mean, this one's pretty blatant, and the Vegas series underscored it. 3 times they blew a lead and lost. That's huge. And that is not just on the defense, meaning the 6 guys back there and the goalie. That's everybody. That is the whole team. Needs to be better defensively, needs to shore those things up. Too many times in the regular season, we talk about the naps, the defensive miscues, the giveaways, that let other teams that were good in transition really take advantage of Utah. And Vegas did it in the series. It just where there were giveaways or miscues, credit them. They capitalized on them, right? Vegas had to actually score the goals. But it's the same thing we've seen from Utah defensively for a while now. And I think that to me, is a huge priority.
We talked about special teams all year, so it would be appropriate to look back in our post-mortem and say, all right, the ups and downs, the roller coaster of the penalty kill and the roller coaster of the power play, and especially the power play deficiencies that we saw in the playoffs. Is that fixed with personnel, or is that fixed with practice? How do they address those things?
Well, again, it always starts with coaching. Special teams is a lot of coaching, but then it is a lot of personnel to play the way the coach wants them to play. You can have what someone might consider the perfect penalty kill or the perfect power play, but if you don't have the personnel to do it, then you're not going to execute what the game plan is. And so it is chicken or the egg right here. Okay, you have to take the personnel you have and put together a game plan that'll be successful for them. Because if you're trying to force a square peg into a round hole, look, Edmonton's got the best power play in the league because they have McDavid and Draisaitl. Okay, any team with McDavid and Draisaitl could probably throw chalk at a board and land a really good power play plan. So that's it. Part of it's personnel, part of it's getting the right personnel with one another. And the other thing, too, on the power play, towards the end of the year, especially after the Olympic break, all of a sudden it got pretty good. It seemed like they were executing. They were finding ways to get pucks through and then to score some goals. They were getting into what we call the greasy areas, which is right around that net, the 5-10 foot circle around the net where you're going to take a lot of licks, but you're going to score a lot of goals. And I think the evolution of some of the younger players, Cooley, Gunther continuing to evolve, man, he's got a wicked shot. Those guys are getting better with experience. I think that had something to do with it, too. And the penalty kill is just straight up hard work. It is hard work, and it's discipline. When goals are scored on a power play, often by the opposition, it's because there was even the slightest breakdown in coverage. And it takes a lot of mental acuity as well as the physical skills and stamina to continue to kill penalties. So, those are things that you take the personnel you have and try to fit the right guys into your system. And if it doesn't fit, you've got to change the system. So I think it is a little 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But again, to me, it's more on the coaching side because I believe Utah, especially power play, has the skilled players to have a dominant power play unit.
Tom Callahan, our guest, talking Utah Mammoth as their season ended last Friday on a playoff loss to the Las Vegas Golden Knights. We'll talk about the Western Conference playoffs as they continue to shape up and the Eastern Conference playoffs. But the NHL draft lottery is tomorrow, 5 o'clock Mountain Time tomorrow. And the Mammoth don't have lottery odds. Vancouver has an 18.5% chance to take that number one pick. But is this draft class, is this group, is the timeline that the Utah Mammoth are on right now, how much attention should we be paying to the draft lottery and to this particular class of prospects?
I think the Mammoth are every year, first of all, it is worth it to look at the draft class. But because Utah makes the playoffs, they're in the bottom half of round one, and they have done a nice job over the previous several seasons of stockpiling draft picks. So they have that capital. Here's why, 2 reasons why it's interesting. Number one, just to see what your opponents around you were doing and how they're faring, how that might work out for them. And number 2, for me, for Utah, it's a point where I think now the cupboards are stacked with prospects. You have your picks. Yes, you want to hit on your picks if you can, but those are trade capital. Those are means of moving around to get players because now you're entering your Stanley Cup window, in my opinion. This is the first year where the window opened just a crack. Next year, I want to see the window thrown open halfway, and the year after that, it better be wide open. Because I think it's basically a 3-year window, and years 2 and 3 is where this team is going to be competing for a Stanley Cup. So I think the draft matters in that Utah might be able to do some maneuvering with what they've stored up in prospects and picks to fortify themselves with a mid-range player, and I mean that as far as age, like mid-20s, late 20s, maybe an early 30s veteran, because they're going into that window. So that, to me, is why the draft matters. I mean, it's fun to see who wins the lottery. Is it going to impact the Mammoth? No. And how different is that from a year ago, which is actually a really nice place to be if you're a Mammoth fan.
The Stanley Cup playoffs move on without us, as they do every time a team loses. The Avalanche and the Wild put on just a barn burner of a game, 15 combined goals in this one, and Colorado emerges victorious to take the 1-0 lead in that series. Plenty of hockey left to play, obviously. We had just wonderful hockey in the first round. Are we going to get that same level of intrigue or even better in the second?
Well, if Colorado Minnesota game 1 is any indication, buckle up. I mean, that was nuts. Boy, I every time I looked away from that game, there were not one but 2 or 3 more goals on the board. It was insane, but it's fun. Not every game in that series is going to be like that, but they're all going to be close. The contests will get better as we get through the Cup playoffs more. The intrigue will build. I can't believe Montreal bounced Tampa in 7 games, but good for Montreal. And now there's a real old school rivalry playoff matchup, Buffalo against Montreal coming up. Carolina, I think, is going to go through Philly like a hot knife through butter. So that'll be an interesting storyline from whether or not, number one, Philadelphia can really make a series out of it. And number two, if Carolina gets another sweep, they're doing a lot of sitting around. What happens when they get the winner of Buffalo Montreal? So that's interesting to me. That's going to be a storyline. And then, I mean, the West is just going to be teams just beating on each other. I hate to put it this way, but I feel like Minnesota and Colorado pretty much is the Western Conference final. I don't give a chance to Vegas or Anaheim coming out of the Pacific for either one of those two teams to beat the winner of Minnesota, Colorado. So maybe we are looking at Carolina, Colorado, but maybe not, and that's why we've got to play the games. I would love to see Anaheim pull the upside against Vegas, and I think that's going to be a really interesting clash of styles. I think that Utah showed Vegas is beatable, and I think that the Ducks can follow the blueprint and get the job done. So to me, there's a lot of intrigue, all for different reasons, all for different series. But if you're just going to pick one to follow, it is the division series, Central Division, Colorado, Minnesota. That's the one I would watch every single game.
Is Connor McDavid skating in an Oilers sweater much longer?
I mean, yes. What's crazy is he took a discount to ensure that team would have the tools it needs to be able to support him to win a Stanley Cup. But they cannot get out of their own way when it comes to defense, goaltending, and supporting Connor McDavid. Quite frankly, they're lucky they have a Leon Draisaitl. The Oilers were a worse team this year than they were the last 2 years. And I don't know that McDavid forces his way out of Edmonton yet. Next season's going to tell you a lot, though. If they come out of the gate and they're awful, Edmonton could change a lot by changing the coach. They could really, over the summer just be like, you know what? We're going to go with a different direction. And then that's going to buy them a couple of years of, hey, we're going to figure this out, and, how do we work with McDavid and make this better? But I still stand by my prediction that he's going to be the best player ever to never win a Stanley Cup.
Oof. Oh. That would be brutal to see in his career, given how great he's been.
Yeah. I mean, we throw around generational talent pretty easily in any sport, but Connor McDavid truly is a generational talent. Everything he does with the puck and without the puck is exceptional. And yes, it would be a shame, but man, I don't know. I don't think it ever happens in Edmonton. I just don't. He will have to go somewhere else eventually.
Are we going to see Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin back in the NHL next year?
Ovi, yeah, I think he'll come back for one more. I know he said he was going to evaluate it, but there's just part of me that thinks he would like to get to 1,000 goals. because it's a nice round number, and he could, but it's going to take a little while. He's not going to do it next year. So he's really going to have to. And look, at the end of Ovechkin's career, he's going to go back and play in the KHL because, that's what Putin wants him to do. But he can still go back and play when he's 45 or 47 years old. No one will know the difference. It'll still be, hometown hero, NHL all-time great comes home. For Sid, it's a little bit of a different story. The Penguins, nobody gave him a chance this year, but they came back and they made it. But they're going to be another year older. Letang has always been injury prone, especially the last 5 years. I don't know if he's going to hang it up. Malkin wants to come back, only wants to be in Pittsburgh. Sid wants to come back, only wants to be in Pittsburgh. Unless the Penguins, in their younger core, feel like they really do have a shot at a run, I mean, I don't know that they would trade Crosby, or if he'd have the appetite to try to go somewhere to quote-unquote win one more cup. But I think he comes back. I don't think he's done. I just don't get that sense. Nothing about the way the season finished tells me he's ready to hang him up.
So I put a question out this morning. This will be my last thing. Like, who was the team MVP this year? And it feels like the consensus is like, Clayton Keller playing through what he had to play through and still being the points leader and facilitating the way he did. If that's how people want to say it, fine. A more fascinating question: who is going to be the team's best player next year, Tom?
I like this question. This is good. Yeah, it's because you get another year of Logan Cooley's growth. You get another year of Dylan Guenther's growth. You get another year of just the potential for guys next year to jump in and make an impact who are prospects right now. The Iginlas, the Baudouin, Desnoyers. Could one of them come out of nowhere and surprise? I think Cooley's game overall, all the tools he has, bode well for him being the best overall player for the Mammoth as this team, looks 2, 3, 4 years down the road. But the guy that I love and will be the team's leading goal scorer is Dylan Guenther. And I love Guenther not only for his ability to score goals, but there were times this year when the Mammoth were just flat or just didn't have it for whatever reason. They just weren't plugged in that night. But Dylan Guenther was. Dylan Guenther was in the pile. He was in the face of the other players. He has that, as the kids say these days, he has that dog in him. He really does. To me, Dylan Guenther is the future captain of the Utah Mammoth, and I'm picking him as my player for next season to be that person.
All right, I love it. We'll ask you probably the same thing before the season gets rolling. We still want to talk some playoff hockey with you as we get closer to the Cup. So, again, appreciate your time today, and you've been a great asset all season long. Let's keep it rolling, Tom.
Sounds great. I appreciate you having me on, and, I look forward to it.
That's Tom Callahan, one of the best in the business, at Callahan on air, if you're not already following on Twitter. He now gets to, I guess, take off the Mammoth hat and probably hope for good things for his hometown Buffalo Sabres. That's where he came up. So
that's right. They're not only making it to the playoffs for the first time in 15 years, maybe even longer than that, but winning a playoff series.
Yeah,
come on, beating I think Bruins are an original 6 team, if I'm not mistaken, beating a storied franchise in the Boston Bruins. Bell Fraser's Boston Bruins. Shout out to Bruins. Shout out to Bell. That's a big deal. That's I think that's my Eastern Conference team because they're just a great story this year. It'd be cool to have the Sabres make it through.
All right, got to take a quick one here. We'll come back with the hot lunch. There were some revenue numbers released by the Big Ten. This is why the Big 12 is getting creative with their private equity, with their ways to raise capital, because when you hear these numbers that are being handed out for Big Ten schools, it's sobering. Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. All right, welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. Hot lunch today, brought to you by our friends at Big Willie's. 1717 South Main Street in the heart of Salt Lake City. The lunch special today. Patrick, where are you? There it is. Patty melt on swirl rye, Swiss cheese, perfectly grilled beef patty, jalapeno and bacon tater kegs on the side. Yes. Get a little fry sauce. I know you might be thinking, I don't need fry sauce, tater kegs. James and I have sampled this. Trust me. You dunk a tater keg into that fry sauce, extra tangy down at Big Willie's. It's a treat.
I'm a big sauce guy myself, so even if it doesn't need the sauce, you get like the culinary snobs who are like, my Dutch oven potatoes don't need ketchup. I'm like, I still like ketchup, so I'm gonna put ketchup.
Like, cool.
Like,
it's not about need.
It's no offense to you, sir. But I like ketchup, so I'm going to use it.
No, basically nothing needs a sauce, but we want sauce. There's needs and there's wants. This is a want thing.
Yeah.
All right.
And these tater kegs, if you're not a big sauce person, you don't need the sauce to help them taste good, but sauce for me always makes things better.
They're quite moist on their own.
Yeah.
Moist. All right.
Did you say moist?
Yeah.
Moist? Moist?
The Big Ten has distributed $1.37 billion to their member institutions. Now, this is a report. Adam Rittenberg, our guy, Adam Rittenberg, he does the work. He digs it up. Oftentimes, you find these are on kind of a year delay because you have to audit tax records and things like that. So $1.37 billion is actually fiscal year 2024-2025. Can I give all of you a spoiler alert and a news flash? The Big Ten's revenue distribution for 2025-2026, when Indiana won the national championship in football after a Big Ten-laden expanded college football format, and then the University of Michigan won the men's national championship in basketball. Next year, this
UCLA wins the women's national championship in basketball.
It's going to be bigger next year. All right, $1.37 billion in revenue distributed to the member institutions basically a year ago. It's going to be more the next time we get this report from Adam Rittenberg. And so what does that actually look like for a school-by-school breakdown? Well, I'm glad you asked. First of all, it's a nearly $500 million increase from the previous year. That's why all these schools were like, yeah, let's expand the college football playoff. Let's further solidify our partnerships with these television and streaming networks. Let's figure out how to get more money coming in. An extra $500 million for the conference. Banana sandwich, okay? This is where that money went. Revenue distributions of a total $1.37 billion for a single year, this now 2 seasons ago. It was the first year that they brought in the full 18-member conference with Oregon and Washington, all right, who were on a reduced distribution, partial revenue share. So, excuse me. So Oregon got $48.4 million on a partial revenue share. Washington got $46.7 million on a partial revenue share. James, your Ohio State Buckeyes happen to receive the biggest distribution for obvious reasons as the national champs. Again, this is from the 2024-2025 fiscal year.
Yeah, I like that we're living in the past a year. National champions.
You want to take a crack at guessing how much money the Big Ten, the check that the Big Ten cut to Ohio State? And again, this is just their distribution of revenues. Ohio State has its own coffers that it can fill with merchandise sales and all that stuff.
This is from the conference.
This is from the conference.
How much out of 1.7 billion?
Well, how about let's think about what like the best case scenario for a Big 12 team is. Like, let's say Texas Tech, who won the conference this year, and let's say Utah's going to win the conference next year, and maybe Utah is like, you know what, I'm gonna take the private equity money, which is a loan instead of just a revenue distribution, but I'm gonna maximize how much I get. Think of whatever the loftiness of that number could be, and then be like, all right, was it more or less than that? Spoiler alert, it's more.
Is it
$91.5 million from the conference for Ohio State.
So they reported, I don't know if this is the same year, but didn't they report like about $300 million in revenue, maybe $200 to $300 million in revenue? And this might be a different year than we're talking about, so this 91 might not be part of that. But let's say it's a similar number. That's like a third of what Ohio State, blue blood school like that, produces in revenue in a recent year here. Like it's a different level.
$91.5 million for Ohio State, almost $89 million for Penn State, who was a semifinalist in college football. Other full members, so this is not Oregon and Washington, other full members received between $76 and $80 million. This is why the Pac-12 died.
That's the rest of the full members. It falls between those two numbers.
That was Rutgers.
Yeah.
That was the University of Wisconsin. That
Maryland. When's the last time Maryland did anything in the revenue sports that you could think of? I guess they went to the Sweet 16 that season, but like
Maryland got $76 million.
For not doing much on the field, on the court and on the field, yeah. Goodness gracious.
This is why Brett Yormark and Mark Harlan and Taylor Randall and everyone associated with these Big 12 programs is looking at whatever avenue they can explore to get more money coming in, because those are the numbers you're chasing. Those are the old numbers. We're going to, May of 2027, I'm going to be like, guess how much it was this last year? It was another $500 million, which puts them at almost $2 billion of distributions. And Indiana's going to be probably up at or over $100 million for theirs. Ohio State's going to be up there. And we're going to be talking about the Big 12 conference. Like, hey, man, Utah got $60 million and 30 of it was a loan. And you're supposed to compete with that? With those guys? Kyle Whittingham and his team and his department are going to be rolling around Scrooge McDuck style in an $80+ million windfall. The Big Ten killing it. By the way, you might be asking, well, what about the SEC? The SEC released similar numbers. They were slightly over $1 billion. Again, 16 members instead of 18. And the average for them was $72 million per school. So the Big Ten average is higher. They were up in that $77 million range, and the SEC was at 72. That's what we're chasing, everyone. By the way, I need Jim Delaney's agent, whatever. The former commissioner, Jim Delaney of the Big Ten, retired in 2020. He was the commissioner from 1989 until early 2020. He got $5.8 million in bonuses and deferred compensation, plus $600,000 in consultation fees.
From the 2 years ago when he was 4 years removed from being commissioner, he got bonuses?
He got $5.82 million in bonuses and deferred compensation.
Deferred compensation is probably most of that, but still.
He made more than Tony Petitti did, who was $4.5 million as the commissioner.
Goodness.
The only job better than being a Big Ten commissioner is being a retired Big Ten commissioner. Wowza. All right, we talked a lot of NHL playoffs. Let's get to some NBA playoffs. Sarah Todd's going to join us next. That's the hot lunch from Big Willie's at 1717 South Main. Stop by, grab the Patty Melt sandwich today. Tell them OC sent you. ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show, hour 2 on a Monday. Welcome in Sarah Todd, Utah Jazz beat reporter over at the Des News, at NBA Sarah, which is an absolutely incredible Twitter handle. Sarah, welcome back. How are you?
Thank you. I did great branding when I was in college, and I was planning on eventually someday becoming an NBA beat reporter. And I got the email, I got all of the social handles on Twitter, Instagram, everything. And so I'm very proud that I jumped on that early before I even had the clout to even have the name NBA Sarah.
It's the digital equivalent of dressing for the job you want.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. We've got an NBA draft lottery coming up this next Sunday. It is also Mother's Day. Do you think Ryan Smith has to have like a Mother's Day gift, a better one for if the Jazz don't do well in the lottery odds, and one that's maybe not quite so crazy and pricey if Ashley can celebrate them getting, I don't know, like the number 1 pick? Are there 2 gifts in waiting for the mother of the Smith family?
I mean, I just have to imagine that if you have Ryan Smith money, the Mother's Day gift better be really good no matter what the situation.
I got you a plane. Happy Mother's Day.
Yeah. I mean, Sean, isn't every day Mother's Day, though?
Certainly in my house.
Yeah. Listen, I think that Ryan might have learned his own lesson about how to react to the lottery last year, because he was seen. I wrote about it that he kind of angrily stormed out of the broadcast ballroom where the broadcast is held last year, and then he had the Twitter post where he talked about being on a run the next day and like screaming in the as he was running. And as soon as I saw that post, I thought, well, that doesn't really say too many good things to the guy that you're actually going to pick number 5 overall. That's kind of a little bit of a slap in the face. And that turned out to be, a month later, that was Ace Bailey. And so I think that this year, no matter where the balls fall, that he probably is going to have a good reaction and a good gift for everyone all around.
I have a funny anecdotal story about Ryan Smith's reaction to the draft lottery. So I ran into him at a brunch right after the draft lottery, and I don't like to bother people when they're in public, but I was just like, man, I love what's going on with the hockey club. I think it's so great that you brought NHL hockey. And he just mumbled some response about the Jazz pick instead. Like, he didn't even hear the words that came out of my mouth. It's like, it's number 5. I was like, what? That's not what we were talking about, man. I was like, he's got things on his mind. So anyway, this coming draft lottery, the Utah Jazz do have a 10.5% chance to take the number 1 pick. It's interesting because there were so many eggs in that basket, it felt like, for the fan base last year. And I don't get that sense at all, even though it's A.J. DeBonsa sitting up there at number 1. Why the different expectations? Why the different reactions from this fan base from year to year, you think?
Yeah, I think that this one is, I wrote about this, I think, last week in my newsletter, where it's just like, this is a draft lottery finally after these 4 years of tanking, that finally Jazz fans can kind of feel good going into lottery night. And I think that it has to do with the kind of handcuffing that pick ode to Oklahoma City had on the Jazz over the last few years, where it was like, well, if it falls, then we don't keep the pick. And there was all this worry about keeping it, and the fact that ahead or following the lottery each year, there was this weight of knowing that the Jazz still weren't going to be good, that they still were going to be tanking, that all of this was still happening, that the rebuild was still kind of on the ground floor. And this year, it's like, that what the team is going to have next year. That going into next year, we're just assuming, blanket statement here, the assumption is that they're able to re-sign Walker Kessler, but we'll cross that bridge later on. But we know that the Jazz are going to have Walker, Lowry Markkinen, Jaren Jackson Jr., Keontae George, Ace Bailey as like their starting unit core, the young core that they're going to move forward with. And so it's not like the weight of the potential future of the team. It's not like they were taking for Cooper because they were only had just a bunch of draft assets. They made a big swing last year at the trade deadline, this year at the trade deadline. And so there's kind of this feeling of like, yeah, we're going to start trying to win game next year. We're going to have kind of a good team. We feel like things are on the up and up. And so there's just a lot of feelings that like the tanking days are over. We're already going to have like a pretty good team. Anything that happens in the lottery, any pick that the Jazz are going to get, number one, if it's lower than like number 5, then you're just adding depth to the team and to the core that you already know you're going to have. And if you get like one of those top picks, it's kind of just a bonus, right? It's like, whoa, we already think we have something pretty good and we can potentially get like a top 4 guy who has all-star potential. But I think it has a lot better feelings than any of the last 4 years when it's like, well, if we fall out of the top 5, then maybe we don't get someone that's even rotational and we're tanking again next year. So there's just a different feeling on the horizon.
I imagine they've got a contingency plan for if things go as well as they possibly can, sitting up there at number 1. If you're at 5, 6, 7, and you can still grab a quality player because this is such a deep draft, who do you think that is? Is it best player available? Is it positional need? Because at that level of the draft, you usually go with best player available, but we've already talked about some of the core you have, and there's some specifics there with where the holes are and where you feel like you're pretty set.
Yeah, I think there are some holes that the Jazz have, right? Like I think that if you look at kind of point guard or at least ball handling guards, the Jazz don't have a ton of depth there, at least that you think like, oh, that guy can definitely play in the playoffs, right? And so I think that is kind of a need that the Jazz have, but also they have to be better defensively. And so I think that, if you have someone like, for example, Darius Acuff, who is, still on the board and is considered like the top talent available when the Jazz are picking, that looks pretty good from an offensive perspective. But, I mean, he was a traffic cone on defense in college. And so I feel like that would kind of be a big miss for the Jazz if they were to take someone to put on the perimeter that doesn't play defense because they already struggle there. And so I think that it's kind of a mix of both, right? Like you want to take the best talent available on the board, but also something that makes sense and isn't going to, drag you down at all or make your life harder.
Sarah Todd is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking all things Utah Jazz and the NBA right now. 15 total instances of teams coming back from a 3-1 deficit in the NBA playoffs, and we've got 2 in the first round of this year's playoffs. Why? How?
I mean, this couple of answers. One is I always tell people, like, yeah, whenever you hear this brought up every year, like, oh, it's never happened, or, it hasn't. I always say it hasn't happened yet, right? That's the same thing as like, no one ever had scored 37 points in a single quarter until Klay Thompson did it at a really random game in the middle of the regular season, right? Like it can happen. It can happen again. The same thing, Bam Adebayo scoring over 80 points in a game, guys coming back down 3-1 in the playoffs. It just hasn't happened yet. I thought I was, there in the bubble when the Jazz were down, when they were leading the Denver Nuggets, and it looked like, oh, there's no way, because it's never happened, that they're going to lose the Nuggets, and then the Nuggets beat them in that series. And so I think, number one, it hasn't happened yet, but also I think that the teams that it's happening to are kind of also teams that nobody really believes can go all the way, right? Like you're getting it in series where it's between teams that I don't really think are destined for the finals. That could come back to bite me really hard right now, right? And I'm totally willing to take that L if I'm wrong and like the Sixers end up in the finals, that's fine. I'm willing to take the L because I am also the one that just said, oh, it hasn't happened yet. But I mean, I think the Celtics are the team that everyone assumed would come out of the East, but also the Eastern Conference is fraudulent. And so I don't believe in anything that happens over there.
So you don't put a lot of credence into Jaylen Brown's claims that the referees had an agenda to push Philadelphia through, and that's why the Celtics have been eliminated?
I mean, how many years have the Celtics beat the Sixers? What would the referee's agenda be to just make Joel Embiid feel happy one time because he's been so sad in Boston so many years? And you know what? The referee's agenda, if you're a basketball player, especially one at Jaylen Brown's level, I think that your agenda should be maybe we should just win so many games at such a level that we don't put the game in the ref's hands.
Well, that's the correct stance, but it's not something. It assumes radical responsibility for the player, and you can't blame anyone else if you're that good, and you have to be able to blame the other when you lose a series or a game or whatever. It's a dyed-in-the-wool trait of many athletes. You know this.
Yeah, I know, and I don't have a lot of patience for it. I just think, man, you're one of the best players in the world. You've gotten to this level. Maybe take a little bit of ownership. I mean, he was feeling a lot of ownership all year when he was in the kind of second-tier MVP race, but while people were also saying are we really going to get to a point where the 65-game rule forces us to vote for Jaylen Brown for MVP? And so maybe the right thing to do would have been to actually play like an MVP player and win that series.
How do you feel about the 76ers putting some guardrails in place so that non-Philadelphia residents are going to have to go to the secondary market to get playoff tickets? They're building a virtual wall around the tickets so that they can have 76ers fans in the building instead of Knicks fans.
I mean, that feels safe. I just think that this happens in other sports, where, there's only a certain number of tickets, or you kind of have to jump through hoops to get them. I think that kind of makes sense. Also, Philly is incredibly stubborn, but in one of the most lovable ways. I mean, listen, I spent many years living in Philly and covering the Sixers, and so there's an affection that I have for that city. And I think that, man, if New York fans want to go into Philadelphia and they want to do the work to get the tickets and be in that building, more power to them. I cannot wait to see that whole thing unfold.
Anthony Edwards might be able to get back to this second round series. How crucial is that going to be for the Minnesota Timberwolves? Or will it matter ultimately against a team like the Spurs?
Crucial for me, OC. I tried so hard to watch the last couple games of that series. And I mean, I would turn it on, watch for 5 minutes, turn it off, and I'm yelling in my living room at the time. I'm I don't want to watch this game. I hate this because I didn't care whether or not the Wolves or the Nuggets won, but I did not want to watch a game where it was just Bones Highland and Jaden McDaniels beating the Nuggets. I wanted to watch Anthony Edwards and Dante DiVincenzo. And that night that Ayo Dosunmu had against the Nuggets was incredible. And then he's also out. So, I don't want to watch these playoff series where it's a makeshift team of the team I thought was going to be there. I'm yeah, crucial for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Absolutely. They just there's no hope of getting, all the way to a Western Conference Finals without having Anthony Edwards. I don't think that that's an outlandish thing to say, but just for the viewing experience, it's just so frustrating. I don't want to watch a series with the Wolves without Anthony Edwards. That does not sound interesting to me.
Will they win it if he's healthy? Will they win it if he's not?
Yeah, I think that they could win it if he's healthy. Could, right? I mean, anything could happen. It's the playoffs, but I think that if Ant is not healthy, that they're not winning that series. That I don't know if they do if he is healthy, but I definitely don't think that they win it if he's not on the court.
The Dallas Mavericks have hired Masai Ujiri as team president and alternate governor, about 6 months removed from running the old guy out of town, who became, unfortunately, kind of a laughing stock around the league, whether it was his fault or not, given the trade with Luka. What kind of impact does Masai Ujiri have on a Western Conference team that the Jazz are going to have to deal with their young core for a while?
You know, it's funny. One of the first things that I thought was like, what would Masai do in a situation where he had a team kind of with the players that the Mavericks have and kind of a small window with some aging players? It's like, well, he would take a big swing and go after some player like, I don't know, like a Luka, for example. And that's the first thing that I thought is like, you know, he's inheriting a team that did the exact opposite of what he would have done, because he went and got Kawhi knowing that it was on like a one year lease and to bring a championship to Toronto, and it worked. And he's going to a team where the kind of player that you could have make that happen is the one that your predecessor gave away. And so what can they expect is that he's going to take big swings, but also that he truly, truly understands the kind of window that a team has for a championship. And I think that's a good thing for them to have, especially considering kind of the aging, you know, stars that they have in Dallas. I think that he's really going to focus his efforts on actually building something around Cooper.
Who will the Magic hire as their next head coach?
Does it matter?
Well, they played well enough through 4 games that it feels like, yeah, it kind of does, right? I mean, they've got a nice little thing going on in Orlando, don't they?
Well, if the Orlando Magic, let's just say that if the Orlando Magic had the number 1 seed or the number 2 seed and they beat the Detroit Pistons or the Celtics, who we just watched the Sixers beat, in the East, would you pick them at all to win a title?
Well, no, but we can't be doing this in the NBA, right? I mean, we can't just be shrugging and say, well, it kind of doesn't matter who you hire, because if that's the case, then what are the Utah Jazz doing? Like, there's no reason to believe in the Jazz more than the Magic at this point.
That's a great point that you make. Like, what are the Jazz going to do to compete against the Wembys and the Shai Gilgeous-Alexanders of the world?
Yeah,
like
the Thunder.
Kind of the longer conversation. Yeah,
the Thunder roster is terrifying, and they're all as young or younger than everybody else in the West. And then, yeah, the second best team, what I think is the second best team in the league right now, has a 22-year-old best player on the planet who's only going to keep getting better. And it's like, well, you're still supposed to roll a basketball out there and compete and do your best. So
here's what I hope for the Magic. I hope that it's not just like, I don't like the regurgitation in the NBA where it's just like the Doc Rivers and Nick Nurses of the world just continue to roll on and be hired by another team. And I think that like I like what the Bucks did, right? That they hired Taylor Jenkins, because he's still one of like the young and innovative coaches that hasn't been like moved around and he isn't in his 60s or whatever. I just think that like new blood and that some sort of innovation or like taking a swing on someone that's a little bit unconventional, those are the things that I like when, you know, new coaching hires happen. I don't want to just see like, you know, Mike Brown and Mike Budenholzer, all the Mikes of the world. Like I get tired of seeing that coaching carousel, because that's literally a cliche in sports, is coaching carousel, which means that nobody's getting off. It's just spinning. It's the same horses in every market. And that's what I hope is like the Magic do have like a fun young team, an interesting squad, like you were saying, and just they need some tweaks and they need kind of new energy. And so that's what I hope for the Magic.
We will keep our fingers crossed for the Magic and all of the other also-rans, including the Utah Jazz.
Hey, don't you have some lottery conspiracies that you want to throw out here?
Well, I was going to ask you how much the NBA pays each of you to be quiet about their manipulation of the lottery when they invite you into the room to actually watch the draw.
Oh man, if I was getting paid to be in that room, I would be so much happier. Like I welcome it. Someone come and try and bribe me. That's the kind of money I'm looking for in life, OC. I wish that was happening.
You're not getting any hush money, really?
No, hush money again. That's the kind of money in life that I'm looking for. I'm on journalist money over here. All right, it's not glamorous. I promise you that on journalist money, if I was watching something untoward happening in that room, you would absolutely be hearing about it.
I want it to make sense why when teams and like I'm kind of like 14% serious about it when something happened last year where it's just like, hey, this seems like it's a nonsensical move that really helps the league, and then there's a big reward. I want that to make sense, because otherwise I'm like, you're telling me that a franchise that made what we all thought was the absolute wrong move then just gets a mulligan on that absolute wrong move, and our hometown Jazz can't get anything to help them out? But that's what I'm looking for with my conspiracies. Make it make sense.
Yeah, man, I mean, I can bring out all of the cliches of life's not fair, OC, and nice guys finish last, right? Like the thing that always stands out to me is when that happened, the moment that the Mavericks ball combination was drawn out of the machine, the look on the faces of the people involved, like the Byron Spurwell, who is in the NBA hierarchy, he's third, right? He's after Adam Silver and after Mark Tatum, and so he's the one that's in the room for the lottery drawing. And then there's someone from NBA legal, and then there's from Ernst & Young legal. There's these people that are standing there that are kind of they're checking each other's work basically in the room. Like they're looking at the balls that are drawn, they're looking at their packet of numbers that has the combination to make sure that the right name is being announced. All of us reporters have the same packet of numbers. We're checking to make sure, like, yes, we agree that they're saying the right numbers, that they're saying the right name, team name that goes along with it. All of those people, when Dallas Mavericks was announced, when that combination come up, and we all looked down at our packets and we saw the numbers matched, the looks on their faces were like, I wish that I could describe it to you. It was like the looks said, okay, I guess we're about to say this out loud. This is horrible. Like that was the look on their faces, that they knew it was bad. They knew the way that it was going to look. They knew that they really actually had to say it out loud. It was incredible. Like, it was an incredible moment. Absolutely my favorite moment so far of being in that room, because of how just everyone in the room was like, oh my God, this is the worst possible outcome for a team that does not deserve what we're about to say out loud.
Okay, do me a favor. I want you to take a crisp, brand new $5 bill with you into the room. I want you to walk up to, I don't know, one of those suits. And I want you to just like slip it into the front pocket of a suit or a suit shirt and just say, hey, get us AJ to the Jazz, all right? And just pat it. After you slip it into the pocket, just an open hand pat and a wink, and then go sit in your journalism seat and be a pro again. Will you do that for me?
No, absolutely not.
All right.
Two things here. Number one, the journalism salary is the only one I have, OC, and so I do have to keep it. Okay. Number two, I think that I would need a bill that's a lot larger than that in order for that to actually mean anything in that room. And again, the journalism salary is the one that I'm on, and so those are not bills that I carry around.
I don't think there's bills that any of us carry around that could help out in that effort, but we'll keep our fingers crossed. Thank you so much. Oh, by the way, do you know what Mother's Day celebrations are happening in your world? Do you make a big deal out of this holiday while you're, absent and working?
No, honestly, I make no effort at all because my mother lives in California, and so I have been away from my family for major holidays for most of the last 15 years working in this business. And so they understand that, Christmas, birthdays, holidays, all of it's not going to land on the right day for me. And so I make it up later. And so I don't even think about it. The combine and the lottery are always over this weekend. And so I'll make a phone call, but I am making it up. This summer, me and my husband, we're taking both of our mothers on a European trip.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
So we are absolutely making up for missed holidays this year.
James, you know who's paying for that? The hush money. See?
No,
See?
it's not the hush money. It's the one perk of my job, and it's the flight miles that I get for traveling and covering an NBA team. Otherwise, we would not be doing this.
All right. While I have you, what's the stance on the Mother's Day gift for the non-literal mother? So for someone who's not a mom, a stepmom, is not
like me. I'm a stepmom.
Is that well? You don't count then. You're a stepmom. So people who don't have kids, the newlywed who maybe someday is going to have a kid but doesn't have one now, sister-in-law who's single and doesn't have any kids and gets here's something as a potential future mother, or here's all women are motherly in their own. What is the stance on the non-mom getting a Mother's Day gift from the stepmom, the female perspective?
Yeah, that's weird. If you're a non-mom, you don't need a Mother's Day gift. Listen, I became a stepmom last year, and so there were 38 years of being a non-mom, and I never once thought, oh, where's my Mother's Day gift? That's weird, and so don't do it. That's my stance.
All right, I like that from you. I'm writing that down.
Also, people that don't have children, ostensibly they have money that they are not spending on children. Children are so expensive.
Yes, they are.
And so if you have a significant other or somebody in your life that's buying you a gift, hopefully you're getting a gift more often than just one Sunday in May because you don't have kids that you have to spend money on. If you feel like you need a gift or that you deserve one on Mother's Day, go buy it because you're not spending your money on a kid.
Oh, I love Sarah Todd so much. You're the absolute best. I appreciate your perspective on basketball primarily, but just on life in general. Thank you.
Hey, can I do a preemptive Friday?
Yes,
gripe?
Air your grievance right now, and James, get ready to cut this, and we'll play it again on Friday. Okay, go.
Normal spaces in life where people are moving, you guys have to stop stopping in them. Don't in the middle of a sidewalk, in an aisle of a store, on the concourse of an arena. It's so easy to move to the side when people in the middle of a stairwell landing. People stop in the strangest places. Don't do that. Keep it moving. That's my gripe.
All right. We will echo it, and we will reiterate it in Friday's airing of grievances. Keep it moving.
Thank you. Keep it moving. Play with some urgency. Move along.
Sarah, enjoy the weekend, and we'll chat again soon. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot, OC. Talk soon. Sarah
Todd. If you listen to that conversation, you know exactly why we love having her on and why we always go over time when we do.
So just real quick, I've hated the Father's Day equivalent of what we're talking about. Growing up in the predominant religion here.
Yeah.
And you marrying into a family who's part of that OC, you know how big a deal they try to make the non-fathers feel on Sunday and Father's Day, and the non-mothers feel on Sunday and Mother's Day. For me, I was like, don't wish me happy Father's Day. I'm not a father.
It's
Like, stop it.
It feels like one of those things where it means well, like the intent behind it is wholesome, but it's just like it's nonsensical.
It feels awkward. I'm
Where you're
like,
just
I'm not.
what? And then also,
You don't need to help me feel included here. I'm
It's like-
fine.
it's like, wait a second. So we're handing out roses to the moms for Mother's Day, and we're also handing out roses to the non-moms for Mother's Day. So there's nothing to separate the actual moms and the non-moms on Mother's Day. Isn't that the whole point of Mother's Day? Is we put the wonderful heavenly motherly thing on a pedestal, which should be there all the time. We do it for just the one day, and it's just like, well, hey. But what about the non-moms? You can't make them feel bad. It's like, what?
Everybody has to be included. No, they actually don't.
And that's the same thing with Father's Day. You're absolutely right. It's just like, hey, happy Father's Day. I don't have any kids. Someday you might. Okay, but I don't. So
you don't. So please don't put me
kinda
included in it.
weird.
Now, of course, I'm all about wish me happy Father's Day. It was
Yes.
great last year. The unexpected first Father's Day, as the boy was born a few weeks early.
he was born a little early.
Can't wait for this year.
Yeah.
Like I'm all about it now, but up until last year, I'm trying to avoid people looking at me on Father's Day. I'm like, but don't wish me a happy Father's Day.
Mother's Day, by the way, is this Sunday for anyone who's like a procrastinator, is late to the party. If you're going to have a gift shipped, order it today. It's your only shot, okay? Especially those places that are just like estimated delivery, and they tell you it's like tomorrow. That's estimated delivery. And all those places with Mother's Day gifts, they're being overrun right now. So order it today. Save yourself the trouble. All right. We'll take a quick one here. We come back with the Daily Dump. We're a little bit behind, so just bear with us. It's the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. All right, time for the Daily Dump here on the Sean O'Connor Show, brought to you by our friends at Valley Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Perfect time of year to get them to come out to the house. You probably haven't had to fire up the AC like consistently yet. Get it checked out. Get it looked at. Get the vents cleaned before you have to. If you got a plumbing problem, they can take care of that as well. If you just want to winterize the furnace, if you want to shut some things down and make sure that when you fire that back up in the fall, everything's great, well, now it's a one-stop shop. Look for the truck with the duck. Tell them OC sent you. Go online at valleyplumbing.com and set your appointment right there. All right. Don't forget, Knicks Sixers tonight at 6. You can listen to it right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. That's your home of the NBA playoffs. We talked a little bit about this with Sarah Todd. Orlando Magic have fired their head coach, Jamal Mosley. 5 seasons in, first-round loss to the Pistons. They led 3-1. Then they lost in 7 games. This is one of those crazy things, right, where it's the sliding doors moments that you have in life and in your career. Now, Mosley's going to be fine. He's only 47 years old. He'll get an assistant job or he'll get another head coaching job or whatever. He's going to be fine. But if your team wins one more game and you knock off the number 1 seed, you're not getting fired. Losing after being up 3-1, your owner, your team president says, you know what? The players got us to this point. The coach stopped us from getting beyond this. And so you get fired. And now whoever the next person is, and Sarah Todd says it probably doesn't matter that much, but whoever the next person is takes over for a team that you helped grow, develop, and maybe gets them one step further and becomes the hero of the day, all because of that one strange, like 4 possessions go a little bit differently, and you still have a job. It's so wild in college coaching. My favorite example of this is the Ryan Day situation. When he won a national championship, not this past year, of course, that was Indiana and Curt Cignetti. He won a national championship at Ohio State because of
Say that one more time.
And it's because of an expanded college football playoff. If he had to wait one more year for the field to expand to 12, they would have fired him. Instead, he became a national champion. It's not because he's not a good coach that they were going to fire him. Obviously, he's a good coach. He went on to win a national championship. But the rule change, right, the format change, benefited him more than I've ever seen any change in any employment benefit anybody.
Can you imagine how not jet black his beard would look if he did get fired? Can you imagine that?
A single gray appears and spreads like wildfire across the entire chin.
No, you're absolutely right about that, because a good chunk, if not like enough of the fan base to say the whole fan base wanted him out. There was a good enough chunk of that fan base there where it was that athletic administration, the ADs, the athletic department, whoever is ultimately making those decisions, the university president, they would have been justified. The fan base, a lot of the donors probably would have felt that would have been justified if it was still a 4-team playoff. Ohio State misses the playoff by losing to their rival once again. At that point, it was 3 or 4 years in a row. Instead, there's 8 more teams in the playoff, and they were the most talented team in the country. If they showed it in the playoff and won the national championship, and then he got an 8-year extension. And now, even after a disappointing finish to last season, losing their last 2 games, he's completely not fireable. If he does that again this year, we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's wild how quickly that kind of thing can change. And you're right about Jamal Mosley. If they pull off this first-round upset, he's still the coach of the Magic.
Well, and not only and then if they lose the next round, it buys you at least another year because you knocked off a 1 seed.
Yeah, there was there was across the NBA, there was a huge feeling, and probably there, and most certainly there locally in the Orlando area, there's a huge sense of this team really underachieved. This team really disappointed. The complete other direction on that, I think their expectations were way too inflated because they spent way too many draft picks to get Desmond Bane, and I've voiced my skepticism about Paolo Banchero long term as your number one option for a team that you think is on the top half or the top end of the Eastern Conference. I just don't think they're there. I think they played as well as I expected them to. But everyone else believed that they should be a top 3 team, top 4 team in the East. They were wanting to fire him before the playoff series started. Then they're up 3-1. It's like, well, you know what? Maybe the playoffs is when they're going to finally play like we thought they would. They ended up playing the way that I thought they would and losing the series. So there you go.
Jaylen Brown went on Twitch. And he stated that the refs had an agenda to call offensive fouls on him and hardly on anyone else. This is the quote. They clearly had an agenda. If Jaylen does this move, the push-off, call an offensive foul and follow him every time. He says he talked to some refs and they said there was an agenda against him. Really, Jaylen?
That was the craziest thing that I heard. They played it on Dan Patrick. A bunch of people saw it on social media last night. People who were on his Twitch stream certainly saw it live. Like, for him to say, I talked to some refs and then claim those refs told him, oh, yeah, you're right. Like, no way that happened. There's no way.
We've had referees on, okay? And what does the fraternity of referees always do when you ask them questions about a controversial call, about something that is, building a groundswell of support from a fan base or whatever? What does every referee you have ever heard on every station do? Every time they back the referee.
Absolutely do. They either agree with the call unequivocally or they say, that's a really tough call.
Exactly. They cape up for the boys, and that's fine, but it's ridiculous that Jaylen Brown is just like, yeah, to me, though, they admit that there's an agenda against me. Shut up, Jaylen. Also, here's the thing. He's a really good basketball player. He is. Do you know what kind of players cause agendas or league office conversations with referees? Not really good players. It is dominant, world-changing, unstoppable players. Those are the players that incite some kind of conversation between the league and the referees and like coaching staffs and things. It's Shaquille O'Neal and those types of players just like, hey, we have to do something here in order to stop the hack-a-Shaq or in order to stop Shaq from, throwing this elbow and getting like, we have to do something. Jaylen Brown, you're not that guy. Yeah, I'm sorry.
The self-awareness is lacking. Just to add some context to that, his theory is he's obviously a very outspoken guy, always has been, very intelligent, and very, very well-spoken. So his theory is he has not been silent all year about his gripes with the referees in post-game interviews and whatnot. He's let the refs have it whenever he's felt there's some kind of injustice against him or his team. And so his theory is, because I have been very critical throughout the regular season, the refs decided to gang up on me. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's true, but there's no way they told him that they did that.
Now, if that is true also, right? And again, this is a really intelligent guy. So if you believe that my words led to this action from not just a referee, but from like the fraternity of referees, if the reaction to my action is that they now have a vendetta against me and they are going to penalize me excessively and through me to penalize my team excessively, then what is the correct thing for you to do as an active player? It's to shut your mouth and not give the referees a reason to single you out. I'm all for standing on principle. I think it's an important thing for people to do. But if you standing on principle has a real-world consequence, if you actually believe that, a real-world consequence that you can't control by continuing your standing on principle, and it actually hurts not only you, but your team, your franchise, the city of Boston, whatever, and you continue to do it, then you're just a moron. You're just selfish.
And maybe his like split the difference thing is with his mindset is, well, I didn't say any of this while the series was still going on. Now it's the time. Now I feel like it's the right time to do it, but I still don't think that's the right time to do it.
If I had some deeply held belief that free speech should protect every word in speech, and I was going to come on terrestrial radio and I was going to drop F-bombs all the time because I don't think the government should regulate that. And that's the hill I wanted to die on. I wanted to stand on business on that. I wanted to be critical of the FCC. You can't regulate this. You can't talk. And they were just like, okay, like, we now have to cancel your show and we have to fire your producer because he's the one who allowed the bad words to get on air or whatever. Then I'm the idiot. Not like I know the system I'm fighting against. Maybe I think it's corrupt. Maybe I think it's not good. But just shouting into a microphone about it is not how you win those battles. And it's certainly not how every athlete in every sport going back to the beginning of time that has decided to pick fights with referees could come to you and tell you, you know what? It didn't work for me, Jalen. And it's not going to work for you.
Yeah.
This is a bad idea.
And the other spicy thing he said, some refs, if I had to choose, in other words, if he were the commissioner, he would need to be investigated. And he said 3 of them reffed the last 3 games of the series. He didn't name names, but he said he went as far as to say they were reffing Game 7. They were reffing the last 3 games that they happened to lose, by the way.
We don't even disagree on the fact that referees should be investigated and held accountable if there's bad calls or inconsistent calls or whatever. But that is not for you, the player, to talk about and put a target on your back with. That is foolishness. And it could be costly for your team. What are you doing? All right. We got to take a break. Shahan Jayaraja is going to join us to talk all things going on in the world of college football. The Big 12 private equity deal. Brendan Sorsby and his gambling update. What's the latest in the Brendan Sorsby case? Is he headed to the NFL supplemental draft? We'll check in with Shahan about all those things. A quick reminder, though, that at Shields, you've got the Dock Dogs event coming up on May 29th. You have got to see this live. It's exactly what it sounds like when I say Dock Dogs. They build a boat dock with a giant above-ground pool in front of it, and the dogs run to the end of the dock. Their owner, handler, best friend throws like a rubber ducky, and these dogs go sailing off into the water. I don't know why this became a sport, but I am super happy that it did because it's amazing. It's the most wholesome content you've ever seen in your life. These super athlete dogs just getting pumped to play. It's great for the kids, fun for the whole family. In the parking lot of Shields down in Sandy, Dock Dogs ready to let it fly on May 29th. There's going to be giveaways, vendors, food, and, of course, great deals in store in Shields going on the whole time. So wander in, wander out, grab some food, go back in, look for some swim trunks, go back out. Oh, I forgot the paddleboard. Go back in, grab the paddleboard, watch the Dock Dogs. That's May 29th at Shields in Sandy. Tell them OC sent you. Shahan Jayaraja joins us next to talk all things college football in the offseason. It's Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome to hour number 3 on the Sean O'Connell Show. Welcome in Shahan Jayaraja, national college football writer over at CBS Sports. Shahan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Can I congratulate you also on something that I just learned from your Twitter? The first National Writing Award, the solo National Writing Award of your career, the Excellence in Sports Reporting Award from the AAJA for your Texas Tech piece last year, which all of us read, that you and I talked about on this very show. Congratulations, Shahan. That's pretty cool.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it definitely wasn't something I expected, but very, very excited.
That's awesome. And you know what? You're great at the job, so you deserve it. Let's jump into what's going on in and around the Big 12. I want to start with the big picture news we got. I guess it was last week now that the conference has reached a private equity deal that will allow up to $30 million of cash to come in per program, per university, voluntary opt-in kind of a situation. It's also going to bring money in to the league office. And, on a surface level, it looks like a pretty typical private equity partnership. They're not going to have a ton of decision-making, according to the league office, power to, make changes, at least not as of now. There's like a sunset clause potentially to look at. But I know that you dive into the details a lot more successfully than the rest of us do. So give me your thoughts on this private equity agreement and partnership with the Big 12.
Yeah, so the biggest thing to know about it, right, is there is a distinction between private equity and private capital. And so essentially what private capital is, which is what the Big 12 is primarily doing, I mean, it's essentially a loan, right? It's a loan with some strategic partnership involved. There isn't necessarily selling of equity stake, right? So these outside groups don't necessarily own these schools or own the league or anything like that. But it does come with some strings, right? It comes with obviously an expectation that money will be returned with interest in many cases. It comes with the expectation that certainly these outside groups feel at least some ownership involved of what happens next with these conferences and these programs. And so it'll be a little bit of walking a fine line of both trying to take care of your financial interests while also trying to maximize the money available to you to try to put yourself in the best position. Now, I think that for Big 12 schools right now, there is kind of this understanding that something is probably going to happen in college football in 2030, 2031, whenever a lot of these conference media rights deals expire. Does that look like a super league? Does that look like a breakoff of major college football? We don't really know the answer to that question, but I think that there's sort of this understanding that, you know what, we don't want to have programs that aren't ready for this moment financially when that time comes. So if we have to take a short, long-term hit, we need it for that short-term benefit.
It's interesting because when I think of, okay, what makes a team ready for impending changes 3, 4, 5 years down the road? And if part of what makes that team ready for those changes is more debt, I start to balk at that a little bit. If this is, credit and you're borrowing and you're having to pay these things back with interest and you're leveraging against future revenues, an invitation to something else, a better television deal and the revenue associated with that, to me, it's scary because it feels like you're just getting further and further behind the 8 ball, while I'm also reading stuff about the Big Ten handing $90 million to Ohio State from the 2024-2025 fiscal year. So on one hand, I'm applauding the effort here to try to close the gap. On the other hand, I'm concerned that the gap just continues to widen because it's not profit necessarily. It's a leverage against future profits.
No, and it's a totally fair question, and it's one that I think that a lot of these programs and teams are going to have to answer. And by the way, as part of this deal, Big 12 schools are not required to take the money, right? They're not required to take this infusion of capital, and some may decide not to. This is, I think, more than anything else for, let's call it the, bottom half of Big 12 schools that's really struggling with capital right now. The schools that I mean, again, I don't have any information at this point who is confirmed to take it, but you think of like the Iowa States of the world. You think about it of, UCF maybe coming in and trying to have an infusion of capital. You think about it with the 4 newcomers that transitioned up from the group of 6 that didn't have full payouts until very recently. So, maybe that can help take care of some short-term debts, and maybe you're trading that off for, again, a lower interest rate. So it just depends. I mean, every one of these schools has to take all these considerations into account. But like you said, I mean, the Big Ten has all this money flowing out, and again, the gap between the Big Ten SEC and the Big 12 ACC continues to grow. But even with that context, the Big Ten is looking into equity deals as well and capital deals as well, because nobody has a necessarily great idea of what's going to happen next. And they're trying to build themselves up to a point where they can survive whatever comes next. So this is not just an issue that, let's call it the, bottom half, bottom third of the power conferences is dealing with. This is an issue that 75% of the power conferences are dealing with, and they're trying to, again, because we know that Ohio State is going to be fine in the next iteration of whatever. We know that Texas and Georgia are going to be fine. Everybody else is trying to figure out, can I save myself a seat?
Shahan Jayaraja, our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking all things Big 12 for now. That was going to be one of my questions for you. Who opts in, who opts out? I think it's safe to say here in the state of Utah, BYU and their athletic department and their university, as I think they were asked about it when Utah did the private equity deal with Otro Capital, and the response for BYU at that time was, yeah, we're not going to get involved in this kind of thing. And we haven't heard anything that would reverse that sentiment between then and now. So I think BYU is probably on the outside looking in. We associate Texas Tech partially because of that award-winning article you wrote with big-time money. And so maybe there's not as much of a need there. Do we think that the flush members of the Big 12, for lack of a better term, will just say, hey, no, thank you? And if so, does that change their relationship with the conference at all?
I certainly don't think that it will hurt any relationships or change any relationship with the conference. I mean, this is an opportunity for teams from the conference in their eyes. This isn't necessarily a commitment in that way. I think that you mentioned, right, BYU has done a really good job of raising money and putting themselves in a good position competitively and all this, and they don't seem likely to do it. And also, I mean, I think that for a number of financial, ethical, whatever you want to call it, reasons, I think that BYU would be a little more reluctant to do it than most teams. I think Texas Tech is interesting because, for one, if you have, everybody talks about Cody Campbell, it's really like 6 or 7 guys who are all billionaires or close to billionaires. If you can get a short-term, essentially, loan from one of them and even potentially pay some of it back, does that make up for the fact that you don't take on $30 million in debt from outside capital? Maybe, right? Maybe that's something to take into consideration. So I do know that that Redbird Capital specifically, some of the founders of it have some ties to Texas Tech. So maybe that is a thought, right? That, these are partners that we trust. So I don't know that it's necessarily going to strictly break down, the poorest schools are all going to take money, the richest schools are not, because here's something else to think about is if Texas Tech has $30 million more dollars to create more value over the next few years, maybe they might just do that. But I do think that we certainly are going to see it with some of these programs. Let's call it the programs that are struggling to get up to that $20 million rev share number, right? Because even if you want to get into the logistics of all of this, Texas Tech is trying to push their rev share and their NIL higher and higher through these outside means. There are other schools in the Big 12 that are just trying to stay at that $20 million number. I think that this infusion of capital is going to be more useful for those teams than necessarily the high dollar teams.
This is probably an unfair question to ask, but it's one that I asked when Utah finalized its private equity deal. And it's a question I've had when the Big Ten talked about exploring, outside sources. And now that we have it in the Big 12, if you are a member of the Matador Club, if you're Cody Campbell and company, and you're seeing the conference be like, hey, we're going to get money from these outside sources, but we're going to pay it back with interest, as you already mentioned. Or in the case of Utah, we're going to get money from outside sources, but they're going to then have an equity stake in our athletic department. If you're a traditional booster, as we've always defined them, where you're gifting this type of stuff, is there another level of financial commitment? Is there another level to unlock from a Cody Campbell to say, yeah, like if you want an extra $30 million from me, I have it, but I've already given you all the gifts I'm going to give you. The charity is done. Give me a piece of Red Raider Athletics, or give me a 6% interest rate or whatever. Will this potentially alter the way that boosters at Big 12 schools and elsewhere have a financial relationship with their universities?
There is actually, and this is something I've thought about trying to do over, maybe this offseason or maybe even next year. Like, there is something to be said and talked about with the concept of what are boosters getting in exchange for money? And this is a question that dates back a century, right? Like this has been happening since we had football in the 50s and 60s and donors were giving money. And I think that some of this stuff is still true, right? Like, one big piece of it is, you're getting access, you're getting influence, you're gaining reputation. Like, Cody Campbell is now, first of all, he's chair of the board of Texas Tech University. So, in practice, right, he's very involved in the running of the university, but he's also kind of a local micro celebrity. He gets unlimited access to these people. He's part of the planning process. He almost gets some of the benefits of, like you said, owning a professional franchise without necessarily the liabilities of owning a franchise at the same time. Now, I think where it gets interesting, right, is that, like, this has been a passion play, I guess you'd call it, for a very long time. That this is a place that, we're going to put tens of millions of my dollars, hundreds of millions of my dollars into this athletic department because I like it and care for it and because I want a place that I care about to succeed. Well, again, like you said, the more that this keeps getting corporatized and the more that it keeps getting monetized and the more that it's always been a business, but this is obviously as businessy as it's ever gotten. I think less about the idea of loaning and, schools owing money back to boosters. And I think a lot more about the context of, like, why would you do it? Right. Like at what point do you just say, well, you've got all this money, you've got all this revenue flowing in. Like, why am I going to donate to you? And again, right now that has not come to effect, but like at one point in time, when you donated X amount of dollars, what they did was they put your name up on the football stadium.
Yeah.
And when you give it to a quarterback who transfers after a year and a half, you don't get that same return on investment, even personally.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's We've talked about and we've read about donor fatigue at other places, and it's usually like a Troy Aikman. It's somebody we already know that's already famous who's just like, I gave money and the kid left, or the kid didn't even know where the money came from, or didn't even want to shake my hand or whatever. And so I think it's a very real situation, and it's one of the many, many hurdles that need to be overcome in the world of college sports sooner than later. Shahan Jayaraja for a few more minutes here on the Sean O'Connell Show. This is an even more interesting and fascinating story for me. Brendan Sorsby and his gambling scandal. Checked into a gambling rehab facility. We go back through the history, and he was at Indiana. He was gambling on Indiana games. Doesn't look like ones that he actually played in, but gambling on Indiana games when he was there. When he was at Cincinnati, he was gambling. When he's at Texas Tech, I think we could assume like something is probably still going on. And now that it's caught up with him, he's at risk of losing his eligibility. He's retained the attorney, Jeffrey Kessler, to try to keep that college eligibility. There's the NFL supplemental draft if that can't happen. How do you process the Brendan Sorsby saga and what it's going to mean, not only for him, but for Texas Tech?
Yeah, look, it's huge, obviously. When I look at this team, I think it's going to matter more for the ceiling of Texas Tech this year than the floor. First of all, look, if Will Hammond doesn't tear his ACL last year, I don't think that they're taking this kind of swing on a quarterback in the portal. But now they did. Obviously, we don't know if Will Hammond's going to be back by week 1. That's a huge question mark hanging over the program. And then the other thing, too, is like the uncertainty of all of this is also something that makes it just a little bit worse. You mentioned, of course, Brendan Sorsby retaining Jeffrey Kessler, who, like you said, is the attorney who negotiated the house agreement on the side of the player. So essentially the NCAA's worst nightmare, right, when you talk about lawyers. But, depending on what the data is, the data might be what the data is at this point, right? If he explicitly broke some of these rules, like you're getting to the level of trying to challenge in court the idea of players not being able to gamble on their own games. Like that is probably not something that's something that's probably going to hold up even, when you talk about some of these new rules and regulations. So ultimately, I think that Texas will be okay. I think that even if they have below average quarterback play, they're going to have a top 3 defense in the Big 12. To me, they might have the most talented running game in the Big 12 or up there with, teams like Utah and BYU. And so I think this is still a team that, especially when you look at their schedule, they're going to have a really good chance to be in the Big 12 title game. They're going to have a really good chance to maybe win the Big 12 and make the playoffs. But I will say the difference between Brendan Sorsby being on the roster and whoever else is playing quarterback being on the roster is that I don't think they can win a playoff game without plus quarterback play. And I don't know that they're guaranteed it with Sorsby potentially out.
For him personally, there's the prospect of fighting to try to maintain his eligibility. I assume that also means maintaining the NIL contract that is reported at somewhere around $6 million with Texas Tech. There's also the factor of, having to pay money back to Cincinnati. But a little non-throwaway fact here is that apparently Cincinnati learned about him gambling before his last year with Cincinnati and I guess didn't report it, didn't investigate, didn't punish him for it. Will that change the buyout relationship between Sorsby and Cincinnati, I guess, in any case?
Yeah, and I want to be clear at this point, right? Nothing's, all this is still alleged. It's going to depend a little bit on, again, the NCAA's investigation. Because if Cincinnati knew that he was gambling and didn't report it, like that could potentially be grounds for Cincinnati to be in a lot of trouble, potentially ruling him ineligible for the 2025 season and vacating some of those wins and punishing them. So like there's a lot of different levels to this depending on what exactly the data is. Again, because if Brendan Sorsby bet on NFL games while he was at Cincinnati and Indiana, like it's bad. It's going to be a struggle, but he would potentially only lose 30% of the season. If he bet on other college football games, it would be 60% of the season. It's only if he gambled on games involving his own athletic department that you're talking about permanent loss of eligibility. But so the details of this really do matter. The when people know, the what can you prove about when people knew, like that sort of stuff really matters. Now, again, like you said, if they're in a position where they, you can prove that they aided him, sort of creating NCAA violations, like, yeah, then all of this becomes a little bit more complicated. Frankly, at this point, we don't know. Like, if Brendan Sorsby is out, we don't know, for example, if there's any language in these contracts that would sort of say, even for the $6 million contract, or $5 million is more what we've heard, like that would be voided. We just don't know at this point. So a lot of this is going to come down to the nature of the NCAA investigation, how good the data that the NCAA has is. But I mean, again, I think that for Sorsby, there's been some conversation about the supplemental draft. I think that is relatively unlikely because, one, I think that NFL teams are trying to figure out what kind of risk is this kid, and two, I think he would rather play college football in 2026 and try to eke his way onto an NFL team. But again, this could be a legal battle that goes into the season, and there's no guarantee that it ultimately leads to anything.
I know we've all seen the same articles on this, but there's a smarmy, icky feel to an outlet saying Brendan Sorsby is in trouble for this situation with gambling, and this news in the same thing. This news reflects itself in the win totals, the betting odds, the Heisman Trophy betting odds, all these. Like the very next paragraph in an article about, hey, this kid's got a gambling problem, is how that gambling problem affects the gambling odds associated with him and with his team. The partnerships that college athletics, pro athletics have now with these revenue streams, I mean, it's icky, sort of. So does that change the fight at all? Does that change the way the NCAA or the Big 12 Conference or Texas Tech or Cincinnati wants to punish somebody like Brendan Sorsby, make an example out of somebody like Brendan Sorsby, when he and I'm sure his lawyer are going to be saying, well, what are you talking about? You have signed off on gambling being a thing that brings revenue into the sport now.
Well, first of all, I did double, triple check that piece that was going viral was not me. So it was not, thank goodness. But, it's interesting, right? I think that the NCAA has, like you said, I mean, they have allowed this to grow to a level that, frankly, even, I'm a little uncomfortable with. I think is tough for the sport. But it isn't the first time or only time, right, that sports has taken endorsement from, things that might not be legal to their participants, right? Like alcohol commercials are everywhere. And technically, most college students are not legally allowed to drink. And so while I do think that certainly that's a conversation that we need to have about the mass proliferation of all of this stuff and all of, gambling everywhere and casinos in your pockets and all this sort of thing, I don't necessarily know that it shifts what the rules enforcement will be, because there's a couple pieces of this, right? One is, I mean, even if he was a regular student, if he was gambling under 21, that would still not be allowed. Two, I think, and this is the part that I think that people need to really keep sight of, like it is an existential threat to sports as an industry that people believe that the games are fair.
Yep.
And if people are on the field gambling on the results of games that they're participating in, the entire competitive, the integrity of sports, period, would be impacted. And if that happens, then all of a sudden, first of all, people stop watching because they don't think that they can trust what they see. Two, I mean, obviously, I think it really would risk sort of relationships with, whether it be advertisers, whether it be educational institutions. Like it is a big deal if you can't trust that the game that's happening on the field is a fair and legitimate game. So that's why they have no choice but to be this strict about it. But I think that it's also worth having the conversation that, like this has become such an issue on college campuses. This is everywhere right now. Is there a conversation about restrictions that need to be had? But that's a conversation that needs to be happening at the legislative level and not at the individual enforcement level.
Shahan, before I let you go, the Big 12 Conference in the recent NFL draft had 6 first-round picks, including the number 2 overall, David Bailey, going to the Jets. Of the 6 first-round picks, do you have a favorite fit? Is there one of those guys that you are most sure is going to have a successful NFL career and maybe especially early on?
That's a good question. It was, first of all, I mean, it's crazy to see that many first-round picks in the Big 12. I think that's such a testament to how much the league has grown. I especially look at that Utah offensive line kind of being top of the group. I really liked Jordan Tyson landing with the New Orleans Saints. I think he's going to have a chance to play off of Chris Olave and be one of the best receivers in the NFL, like really, really early. I was a little surprised to go him as high as he did, but watch his tape at Arizona State, man. He is a special, special player. I think that he's going to be able to be huge for that team. Look, we're going to have to kind of wait and see who the quarterback is, but Spencer Fano going to the Cleveland Browns, like, again, that I'm not going to make any comparisons to Joe Thomas or whoever, but like, I think that to be able to lock down that position and probably go into 2027 looking for a quarterback, I think that is a huge spot for him. And I'll also point to Caleb Lomo as well. I mean, I know I'm listing 3 of the 6 guys over here, but to be a long-term tackle option next to Drake May, like, again, you're talking about a rotation of the future. I'm really excited to see what they can be.
Well, so are we, certainly, especially with those those two Utes, because that also means you've got to replace incredible talent on the offensive line. And maybe we can have you back on soon enough to do a spring ball recap around the league. But up against it now, and Shahan, always love chatting with you and picking your brain about all things college football. Continue the great work, and congratulations one more time for your decoration with the Excellence in Sports Reporting Award from the AAJA.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's our guy, Shahan Jayaraja, best dressed in the business, and now someone who's, we can officially say, award-winning sports journalist, in addition to being a lead college football writer over there at CBS Sports. Reminder, we're going to be giving away some free golf today. We're going to do that in about 15 minutes. The Festival of Tees is powered by the Utah Golf Association and brought to you by Mountain Home Services. We give away free rounds of golf on my show and on The Drive with Spence Checketts between 2 and 6. The free round today is going to Lakeside. Let me consult my list here. Lakeside, located in West Bountiful, known for its scenic views of the Wasatch Mountains, playable for all skill levels, featuring a driving range, practice areas, and PGA-certified instruction. 801-295-1019 is how you get a hold of them at Lakeside. We'll give away a free round of golf to Lakeside coming up in about 15 minutes. You probably only pay attention to this sport once a year, and it's probably on Kentucky Derby Day. And boy, were you given a treat if you were tuned in to the Kentucky Derby. We'll talk about that on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. Let's test some Kentucky Derby knowledge here, James. I know you're not ready for this. I don't want to give you a chance to get ready for it. That's how I do things on this show. If you tuned in this weekend and watched the Kentucky Derby and you saw even some of the lead up to it, there was a lot of conversation about not only the winning horse, but the fact that Sherry DeVoe, the first woman trainer to ever produce a Kentucky Derby winner, they talked about the potential of her doing that. And she had some great quotes about how she's glad she doesn't have to answer that question anymore. One of 10 children, by the way, started her career in horse racing 22 years ago as an exercise rider on thoroughbreds and built herself all the way up into being, for this moment, the preeminent trainer. The most prestigious win in horse racing is the Kentucky Derby, and her horse, Golden Tempo, went in some of the most dramatic fashion we have ever seen, maybe the most dramatic fashion we've ever seen. There's plenty of video out there of it. It is a true last to first from all the way in the back of the pack. Golden Tempo busted around the outside all the way up to a Kentucky Derby victory. And this is one of those like one-off sort of freakish bucket list type events for me that hopefully someday we'll have an opportunity to attend. Who did we have on last week? Harry Douglas. Harry Douglas was, when we talked to him last week, was going to the Kentucky Derby this weekend.
Mr. Louisville, Harry Douglas.
Yeah, former Louisville player. Apparently lived across the street from the racetrack and used to charge people for parking on the lawn, which, by the way, in his day would have been an NCAA violation. I didn't want to bring that up when we had the conversation with him, but not allowed to do that type of stuff.
I know. I was going to say, is he admitting to an NCAA violation? You know what that means? Harry Douglas just doesn't care. You're like, what are you going to do to me now about this? You don't have any eligibility. Okay, I know that. I did that already.
So Golden Tempo navigated past 17 horses and charged down the final stretch. About 100,000 people watching at Churchill Downs. The winning time, it's a 1.25 mile race, as of course you knew, James. Winning time, 2 minutes and 2.27 seconds. Which is, interestingly enough, also my time to run a 1.25 miles.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a incredible time.
This is something I put in the daily dump last week, but we never got to. We had the world marathon record broken last week.
Yeah.
You saw that?
Yeah.
And it wasn't one person who did it. Two guys in the same race ran the fastest ever marathons. You know how bad that sucks to be the guy who's second place running a world record time?
You're never going to be remembered for your also world record time if you hadn't have been second.
Broke the 2-hour barrier, running 26.2 miles at like a 4 minute and 30 second. I think it's like 4 minute and 27 second pace.
That's the average mile.
Yeah. In order to put together the final time, it was like 4.5 minutes per mile for 26 miles.
That's wow. I wonder what the fastest of the miles were there. Anyway.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like a steady, or if one, like you do a couple.
How many of those were under 4, I wonder?
Sebastian Sawe set the men's world record with 1 hour, 59 minutes, and 30 seconds, April 26, 2026. The first person in history to run a sub 2-hour marathon.
So the other guy was like just over 2 hours? Is that what you're saying?
I think he was actually also under 2 hours, if I'm not mistaken. I got to find. I think he was like 1:59:57 or something.
So it was kind of a photo finish as marathons go.
I mean, just absolutely insane that someone can run that fast. But yeah, the previous record was from the 2023 Chicago Marathon, 2 hours and 35 seconds. So a full minute faster That's not an insignificant margin. When you're running that fast, that's a quarter mile. Anyway, do you have – how good is your Kentucky Derby history? You know, like you're really good.
I know the name, the most famous names. I know who Secretariat was.
Okay, how many Kentucky Derby winners can you name?
Ugh.
Secretariat,
So
you got one.
Secretariat, Golden Tempo.
Okay, 2.
There's 2.
Good.
I put my name on the top of the page. You got the bonus points there for the test. There were some famous ones in the last 10 or 15 years that got 2/3 of the Triple Crown but fell short. I'm blanking on their names right now. Yeah, if you're going to start reading the list and be like, "Oh yeah, I knew that one," but right now at this very moment I'm blanking.
Let's see here. You can go back really far to get the history here.
Did Seabiscuit ever win the Kentucky Derby?
I think did Seabiscuit win the Kentucky Derby? I don't. I've never seen that movie. It might be the only one.
It's good.
I'm not seeing Seabiscuit on the Kentucky Derby winners list.
Okay.
So the Kentucky Derby was first run in 1875.
There's one called. Hold on. There's one called. What's the horse? Is it War Admiral? Is that the name of the horse, or is it War Memorial?
War Emblem.
War Emblem. He's a Triple Crown winner. I know that.
Oh wait. Yeah. Man o' War.
Man o' War. Sorry, that's the one. Man o' War.
Dominated the 1920s. Only lost one race in his entire career.
Yeah. Man o' War. That's who I was trying to think of. Something War. Okay, that one just came to me.
Secretariat won the Triple Crown. Seabiscuit became a symbol of hope during the Great Depression, but doesn't say Triple Crown.
Okay.
Citation, Triple Crown winner, first horse to win $1 million back in 1948.
Whoa.
American Pharoah ended the 37-year Triple Crown drought in 2015.
That's right. That was American Pharoah. There you go. I don't think I would have remembered the name, but I knew that there was one. There was a horse that finally won the Triple Crown 10 years ago.
Justify then won it again in 2018.
Okay.
And a Triple Crown means you win which 3 races?
It's Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont.
And Belmont. Okay. All right.
I couldn't tell you where I know Kentucky Derby's in Louisville. I couldn't tell you where the Preakness and Belmont are. One of them's in New York State.
The first winner was Aristides in 1875.
Wow.
That was the horse. There's some really good names here. There's one named Ben Brush.
Just
1889, Spokane. 1888, this is a great name. Macbeth 2.
Macbeth 2.
Shakespeare never wrote Macbeth 2 as far as I know. Lord Murphy. That was actually what my teammates called me in college. I should have made them call me Lord Murphy.
You won the Triple Crown?
That's just a Kentucky Derby winner.
Oh, Kentucky Derby
1918, winner. Exterminator. Great name.
All right.
1924, Black Gold. The following year, Flying Ebony. So black theme in those.
Yeah.
1932. This is amazing. How has the burger chain never jumped on this? 1932, Kentucky Derby winner was named Burgoo King.
Burgoo King.
Burgoo King. Burgoo.
Wait, what year?
1932. Burgoo King. You could make such a great commercial campaign if you're Burger King with that around the Kentucky Derby.
Burger King, the fast food restaurant, not, at least according to the quick Google search, not founded until 1954.
So did Burger King name themselves after Burgoo King?
They might have.
Bubbling Over, that's a good one. I love when people name animals just regular human names. Like you meet a dog named Larry. That's cool. I also love it when people name animals like a very dignified name. My old dog's name was Mr. President.
Yeah, Mr. President. That's
how about
great
this?
Name.
Clyde Van Dusen was one of these horses.
Van Dusen.
1931, it was 20 grand. 1937, the aforementioned War Admiral. 1946, assault. 1947, jet pilot.
All these war-themed ones in the mid-40s. What was going on in the world
Yeah,
in the mid-40s? I don't know why there would be so many war-themed horses.
1956, I would have been terrified of this horse. The horse's name was Needles. My number one phobia, needles.
Shout out to after, of course, the great town on the Colorado River in California, right? Needles.
I didn't even know that existed. 1964, Northern Dancer. 1965, Lucky Debonair.
Oh. Northern Dancer's a fun one.
1975, Foolish Pleasure. 1977, Seattle Slew.
Okay,
there's like a Jim Carrey movie reference to Seattle Slew. He's insulting a woman and he makes a reference to Seattle Slew. I can't remember the exact movie. 1985, Spend a Buck.
Oh, it's Liar Liar.
Liar Liar?
It's from Liar Liar. Yeah. Great Jim Carrey movie.
2002, War Emblem. So Man of War, War Emblem, they're all over the place. Super Saver in 2010. 2011, Animal Kingdom. That's another one. 2012, I'll Have Another. That's a great name. 2013, not a good name. Orb. That's terrible. 2015 was American Pharaoh. 2017, Always Dreaming. 2019, Country House. I guarantee this was some kind of like inside joke with the people who own the horse. Honey, I bought you that country house.
I bought the horse instead.
You did? I promised you I would get you a country house, and I did. What? It's in the yard. Wait, what? Go outside.
You did not buy me an RV.
Go outside. I bought you a country house. Look out the front window, and it's just this Kentucky Derby winning racehorse.
Now, and then she's inevitably really upset, and he says, "Well, hold on. Country House is going to win you the actual country house."
Yes.
That's the plan, okay?
Since they ran the Kentucky Derby in 2020. Okay? COVID, not a risk to horses.
Also Kentucky, so.
Authentic won it in 2020, then Mandaloon, Rich Strike, Mage, Mystic Dan, Sovereignty, and now Golden Tempo. Golden Tempo is the son of famous racehorse Curlin. I think Curlin at one point failed to win the Kentucky Derby to some surprise. What did you win? American Horse of the Year in 2007 and 2008, Curlin.
Okay. Dan Patrick had a wild stat of the day.
Okay.
Earlier, and of course you can hear that 7 to 10 every morning here on ESPN 700. He said there was like, how many horses were in the field? I don't want to get it was like a ridiculous number of horses that were in this field are descendants of Secretariat. So like they're all related to Secretariat somehow, which is like, how come so many of you don't win then? If you're second, no, just kidding.
Well,
only one horse can win.
It's like Michael Jordan's kids are not great basketball players. You know what I mean?
He also was mentioning Sports Century, the ESPN show that they made at the beginning of the around 2000, right? They listed the best athletes of the 20th century. Secretariat was 35th, and he was talking about all the backlash they received from athletes to say, you really gonna rank a horse ahead of me?
Well,
and he's like, that's not a horse, that's Secretariat.
It's not just the horse. It is the horse.
And they are the athletes of their sport.
Yeah, I'm glad they gave it to the horse and not the jockey.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if you were like one of the all-time great NHL players and they're just like, this jockey is ahead of you on the all-time athletes? You're like, it's the horse that's running.
Yeah, it's a no-win situation, ranking a horse or horse racing, someone involved in horse racing on that list. But like, I think, like I said, 35th. I don't know. I think Secretariat was dominant enough to be a top 50 athlete of the 20th century?
So here, now that your horse has won the Kentucky Derby,
Yeah.
this is where life as a trainer, as an owner of the horse, you now have this cash, well, not cash cow, cash horse.
Yeah, cash
in this
horse,
case.
get it right.
Because, so Curlin, the father of Golden Tempo, the breeding fee for the 2026 season, if you want Curlin to father a horse baby for you,
Thoroughbred for you, yeah.
$225,000 just for the attempt.
Oh my gosh.
That's the breeding fee. $225,000. Ask me how many times Curlin has been paid between $100,000 and $225,000 for stud fees.
Let's see.
Remember, 2007, 2008 Horse of the Year. So, been in the breeding business for a long time. Been in the breeding business for going on 20 years
Is
now.
it in the hundreds or is it in the thousands, or am I way too high?
It's between 600 and 800 times.
Oh my gosh.
That is bananas.
That's a lucrative
At $200,000 a pop?
that's a lucrative business for
Let's go. And now Golden Tempo, you could just be like, oh yeah, we won the Kentucky Derby. $250,000.
Actually, you know what? We're gonna make it $500,000. Inflation, baby. It's 2026, not 2008.
19 of 20 horses, direct descendants of Secretariat.
19 to 20. That's what it was.
According to Kevin on the old tweet machine.
19 of 20. And
Wow.
Golden Tempo, I'm assuming, is one of those. Maybe he was the one that wasn't.
What if? No, I think Curlin is a descendant of.
Okay.
So, I am. By the way, I am now today going to go down this rabbit hole of horse lineage because we found this out, and it's going to take 3 hours of my day.
You're gonna map out Secretariat's family tree on your living room wall.
It's going to be the biggest waste of time, and I'm going to be like, I'm getting into horse racing, and then I, of course, don't have the means to do that.
Hold on. You said what, a few weeks ago, 40 million's your number for your dream?
Not anymore.
Now it's like 300 million? Is
Yeah,
that
40 million. That only buys me like my mare's like 4 visits with these big time horses. It's crazy, dude. All right, we got golfs to give away. We'll close things out next. Is Spence around today? Because I bet Spence has been to some of these horse races. He's okay. We're gonna do a little crosstalk with Spence. I want to know how many of these thoroughbred races Spence has been to.
Next, and then you need to tell him tomorrow you need to wear one of the hats that you've worn to one of these races.
Yes. By the way, got back to the Salt Lake City airport yesterday. My return from my calling fights in Sioux Falls, and was in the parking shuttle going back to my car. There was a woman who had a Kentucky Derby hat in a clear plastic bag. She was obviously returning from the Derby. Probably about like my mom's age. I wanted desperately to ask her how the experience was, but she was like way too far away.
Oh man, that would have been. I wouldn't have been able to stop myself from asking.
If that was you on the bus, 877-353-0700. Tell me how the experience was. Sean O'Connell Show, wrap it up next on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. All right, free round of golf at Lakeside. And you know what? You'll never see me playing anywhere that's not Lakeside. I can say that definitively. 877-353-0700. Festival of Tees, powered by Mountain Home Services and the Utah Golf Association, giving you a free round of golf at Lakeside. If you could tell me how many times in NBA playoff basketball a team has overcome a 3-1 deficit in a 7-game series. How many times? We talked about this on the show earlier today. If it helps you, it's happened twice this year, but it's still pretty rare. 877-353-0700. The final segment of the show, Crosstalk, brought to you by our friends over at Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100 for $2,500 off, 10 windows or more, lifetime warranty on the windows that are going to increase the value of your home, the energy efficiency of your home. They're going to beautify your home. They're going to make your neighbors jealous and create a minor conflict on your street because your house now looks that much better. Spence Checketts and the driver up next. Hi, Spence.
I was listening to you read off the names of horses who have won the Kentucky Derby coming in.
A wonderful first world problem to have.
Uh-huh.
What am I naming my boat and painting on the back pretentiously, and what am I naming my racehorse?
For sure. It made me think, because you referenced one of the horses was loosely connected to a nickname of yours in college. What was that? Something?
It was Lord Murphy.
Lord Murphy? Why is that your nickname?
No, you've heard the Murphy story. But just throw a Lord in front of it and make it a racehorse. Really cool.
Have I heard the Murphy story?
Everyone's heard the Murphy story.
I don't know that I've heard the Murphy story.
Well, we'll have to save it for another day.
It's concerning you and what dynamic?
It's just people call me Murphy.
Like to this day?
All of my college football friends call me Murph or Murphy.
I've never heard that once.
That's like Rich Eisen not knowing what a gentleman's sweep is.
No, it's not.
Spence, if you listen closely to the next time we have Eric Weddle on the show, he subtly drops a Murph. Not every interview, but every once in a while he's like, well, you know what, Murph? And I'm like, he just did it.
They do it all the time.
Huh. Well, at some point, I'd like to know that backstory.
That tells you how much Spence actually has listened to my show over the years.
I listened to.
I am deeply offended.
I'm sorry to break this one to you. For a while, I was on a different station doing a show when you were also doing a show, so I didn't have the ability to listen.
I still listened to you in those days.
How?
In an imaginary sense.
You listened during your breaks. You turned You turned it to my show.
I put one headphone in with you streaming. No,
that's very dedicated. Did you have any other nicknames as a kid, high school?
No, not really. I mean, people. You can tell when I became friends with people by how they identify me, like what they call me. Anyone from high school or before. Nobody calls me Sean. It's OC to all those people. And if you listen to my radio career, most of those people who only know me from radio call me OC.
Yeah.
If you know me from college ball, it was Murph. That's very specific.
Okay.
And then in the fight world, that's when I actually went by my real name for the most part.
Okay. Well, I guess the obvious answer to the question is you do have an aggressive nickname. It's OC, who most people know you as.
I guess, yeah.
See, the nickname thing is always weird. I had some interesting ones when I was younger that had double ramifications and double meanings,
double
weirdly.
Entendre?
Well, for instance, my very LDS grandfather, Mission President Temple Sealer, nicknamed me Doobie when I was 2.
Yeah.
And there's no way he knew what he was doing, and I didn't really know anything about it until 15 years old, high school. Connecticut, hey, well, I can't say no. It's my nickname, right?
And then you just aggressively lived up to the nickname for a few years?
Yeah. You dabble here or there when you're trying to figure out life. Now, let's pass on grass, kids. Just say no. My other nickname when I was younger was Speedo because I was fast, but then it's also a term for a really scantily clad male swimsuit. I've always had this really weird, nickname situation where I get a nickname, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. Wait a second. That guy looks like he's wearing underwear. Oh, that's pretty cool. Wait, that guy's clearly using marijuana. A weird historical nickname situation over here.
Okay, if you were naming a racehorse, but it had to be one of those nicknames, would you call it Doobie or Speedo?
Speedo. You have to call it Speedo.
Naturally.
You're setting the horse up for failure if you call him Doobie. At least, encourage him to be fast. Do you watch the Kentucky Derby? Are you dialed into this stuff?
I would have watched the Kentucky Derby were I not traveling.
Got it.
Like I love those kind of one-off yearly sporting events.
Yeah.
And the coverage is 6 hours long,
Yep.
but the race itself is 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So yeah, watch it. It's cool.
Have you ever attended the event?
No, the pageantry and whatnot I would love that very much. I get to go to Wimbledon this year, and I'm
Nice.
so excited
That's
for that
awesome.
because, like you get to pretend you belong in those social circles for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
I've never been. I'm undecided about whether or not, because I think 2 friends of mine went this year, and their wives are posting pictures of the hats and the things, and they look miserable, and they're dressed up too with their hats and their thing, like
wearing seersucker suits.
Yes, the pictures are pretty funny because the women are living it up, and my 2 buddies are like, I can't believe I'm wearing this damn hat. Like, that's the look on their face.
I've been to horse races,
Uh-huh.
not at any prestigious place.
Yeah.
And there's actually like a kind of like seedy, scary vibe at the racetrack sometimes with the guy, like the desperate bettors and their slips and their, was this one secretly paid and someone dropped it on the ground?
Yeah.
But like, I imagine at Churchill Downs, you don't get a lot of that.
Probably not. One more random question for you before I set you loose. I was thinking about this earlier today, and you might have to think about it, and we'll readdress tomorrow. Where's the most random place, or what's the most random contextualized situation where you've seen a relatively attractive woman? I'm going to tell you why I'm asking you the question.
Okay.
There's a UPS driver in my neighborhood, and she's like a 7.5 at least. It's weird. She'll like drive by, get out, deliver the package. I'm like, that's a really attractive, like 32-year-old woman just delivering packages every day.
And you don't think of that when you think of UPS driver.
No, I think of 55-year-old males trying to get their pensions so they can retire. I don't think of 32-year-old, like, relatively attractive women.
Okay, yeah. Well, I can tell you my answer now. I don't have to wait. We're talking about, like, unexpected, why are you here?
Yeah, like a transient crossing the street or something.
And this I'm not saying this to be pretentious and have a travel flex, but legitimately, I was in the heart of Chobe National Park in Botswana, like in the middle of imagine you're camping at Yellowstone and there's not a lot of people around, and then you see like Heidi Klum.
Huh.
It was this, I believe she was Ethiopian. It was this tall, like international model looking person. And she there was something to her. She must have been, because there was like a lot of people moving around her. It was kind of like, but she was on a safari.
Yeah.
And we were in like the Jeep. And this was before I went on any cool safari. This was like the $200, like.
You might get eaten if you do this safari?
I maybe had that much in my bank account, just like scraping to, and you drive up in the truck. It's equal opportunity, right? You're all out there, and we're in this like rickety old Land Rover, and she's in the fancy one where they probably flew her in. And I was just like, what the heck is that? Like, who's that woman? And we were all just kind of laughing as we drove away. Like, that, I'm going to remember that until the day I die. And I still remember it.
Yeah, it's a really like stark, like stop you in your tracks situation where you just don't expect it, and you're like, wait, okay. And I'm not diminishing being a UPS driver. Like I said, they get pensions, so good for them. You do it for like 20, 25 years and retire.
Also, if you go to Sweden,
sure,
you walk in and every person, male, female, is just much better looking than they have any business being. And you're like, what the heck?
Yeah.
All the guys are 6'4".
Yeah.
You go and like the person bagging your groceries looks like a professional athlete, looks like a model. You're like, what?
I have never been to Scandinavia. That's a bucket list for me. I'd like to go.
It's yeah.
They have awesome baklava shakes.
You got to wear like lifts in your shoes when you go because you feel short.
Okay. All right. Well, bucket list. Murph.
Stay tuned. You can't call me that.
Oh, man. Okay, fine.
Only people I played with. Sorry.
Fine. I won't ever again.
Okay,
Murph.
Doobie. Doobie or Speedo, we'll go back and forth. Stay tuned for The Drive. It's the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN.